good old Brom to talk you through all this.
What's the deal with airline food?
2. Hello. Check 2. 2. Hello. Dave. Dave Legend. Thank you for the 17 months of Tier 1. Thank you, Dave. Great start to the stream. We love it. Thank you, Dave, and hello, chat. Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to another episode of TRRS. I mean, it would have been good to, keep track of these episodes. I guess it would be possible to retroactively figure out how many episodes that there's been. It would be good to say episode number, because it's hundreds, right? It's in the hundreds.
This is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Lodane, hello. Hey, Lodane. Thank you for the raid. Thank you for the raid. I hope the pre-stream was good. Thank you, Lodane, and I hope your weekend was good too. And that goes for everyone. That goes for everyone in the chat. Yeah, I have no idea what episode this would be. I mean, I remember Andre at Harbinger tried to post something about the show and was like, over 200 hours. Over 200 hours in 2022 or whatever. But that's not even close to accurate because it was it's about 200 streams of a significantly longer period. What I'm at 1.64 thousand hours of streaming. Yeah, I'm just checking that. I'm closing in on the top achievement that you can get. I'm 8/10 of the way there to get the Empire, to get 2,000 hours total. It's 1.6 thousand hours. $1.64K. That's a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours of doing this show. Would that make it episode 400? I guess something like that. I don't know. I guess it would just be nice to be able to say hello and welcome to episode number of TRRS. The subversive program where we deprogram ourselves from the relentless onslaught of propaganda that we're all inundated with constantly. You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Dak. So close to a pass badge.
Thank you, Dakadoon. The 23 months, tier 1. Very, very close. Very, very close to the exclusive, highly elite 24-month TRRS sub badge. Congratulations to you, Dakadoon, and thank you. And I know it was a tough loss, the Bucks, the other night. I'm sure they'll rebound, though. Really, a lot depends on Giannis and when he's able to come back. Tantalizingly close. They did put up a pretty good fight without Giannis, but then in the end they just couldn't overcome. Can you almost taste it? Almost. What's up, Brian? How was your weekend? Ugh. My weekend was pretty good. I saw the Mario Brothers movie with my son and his friend on Saturday. That was fun. That was enjoyable. Watched a lot of playoff basketball. That was nice. Usually when the Raptors aren't in the playoffs, I just kind of like tune out and I don't pay much attention to it. But this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually just like watch the NBA playoffs just as like as a fan of basketball. Usually when I'm not emotionally invested, I don't have as much interest. I like having the pain and the suspense of being emotionally invested in it. And without that, I enjoy watching the sport. You know, I love hoops, obviously, but it hits kind of different. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch the NBA playoffs this year. I decided to become a Kings guy. They're my Western Conference team that I'm backing here. Very enjoyable. Love an underdog story. They've not been in the playoffs for almost 20 fucking years. Amazing performance in Game 1 from both the Kings and from De'Aaron Fox. His very first playoff game. His very first playoff game was absolutely dominant on both ends of the floor, which is amazing because you've seen people in the past, you know, the playoffs, it's totally different. The game tightens up, the defense tightens up, the stakes are different, the pressure is more, and you see how people like respond to that even in their first go around. Pretty amazing De'Aaron Fox performance in that Game 1. Yeah, the Suns Clippers last night was good. Yeah, it was the best like 2 for 18 performance ever, probably from Russell Westbrook. Was gritty on the defensive end and won it on the defensive end, so that was pretty good stuff. Mario Murphy versus Avatar: Way of Water. Obviously, I prefer Avatar as a film. Really, I enjoy like the Mario movie is just like not trying.
You can count on me. You're gonna have
much.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I can't quit hockey as much as I hate the culture, etc. I was looking forward to the playoffs more when the Jets looked like they weren't gonna make it, so I could watch just objectively at OVTRVN.
Thank you, Old Dutch, for the 25 months resub at tier 2. Man, I can't be a hockey fan for that exact reason, because when you are emotionally invested in hockey, the playoffs, it's just torture. Just every single game is just torture. Being emotionally invested in a hockey game and having like a 2-goal lead is like one of the most unpleasant sports experiences, I think. Especially if you're looking at a team that is historically has a history of collapsing in those moments. It's just painful. It's painful to watch. It is so horrible. It is horrible. Yeah. But thanks again, Old Dutch, for everything. Yeah, hockey playoffs are the third leading cause for heart-related deaths. It's just miserable. It's a miserable experience. Like, at least I like basketball for that reason, because there's like a flow to it and it's high scoring. These like 2-1 games and these close hockey games are just like fucking torture. It's just torturous to watch. It sucks. I've always liked Fox. Glad to see it coming together for the Kings. Where the Golden State will game plan better. Yeah, I mean, it sucks that they've got to play Golden State after the season that they've had. I mean, it's not going to be easy to take 4 games off them, regardless of who has the higher standings or whatever. My team has blown 2-0 leads in a row to let the team in second catch up to within 1 point. Good. Yeah, that's always fun. That's always a good feeling. Yeah, the Mario movie, you know, it's enjoyable. It really is not a movie that's trying to be more than it is. It's really just devoted to like giving the fans of the franchise what they want and just delivering on all those fan service moments. And it does. It's nice to look at. You know, it's just fine. I don't know if I would classify it as being good. Yeah, it was totally fine. It was totally okay. Yeah, it included a lot of these fan service moments, especially in the music too. The music cues, like all those are in there. It was enjoyable. I did catch a few minutes of sleep. I think I caught about 10 or 15 minutes of sleep at one point. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to close my eyes for a few minutes here. I don't get a lot of opportunities for these little naps, so I'm going to take a short, brief power nap during this film. We're gonna get to Mark Hamill. We're doing it's the chit chat portion Cool J. It's the chit chat portion, and then we're gonna get to the main bulk of the discourse, which is Mark Hamill's tweet and my response to it that went like very viral, and a lot of the discourse that I saw around that. And it's going to be our way in to get into all that whole conversation. I love to both chit and chat. That's right. You've come to the right place. Did Mario fix dripping taps or unclog a toilet? Yes, actually, in the first few moments of the film. Absolutely. It's funny, the whole conversation about Mario and like wokeness and stuff, because in many ways, like I think it's right that there's really no element of that in it. As much as like, even though there's like a character that dresses in drag and there's the girl boss Peach character and stuff, it's really not like trying to do or say anything really. It's just like, this is a Mario Brothers movie. This is what you want to see with that. This is a reference to this game. This is a reference to this game. Here's the music. It's just like, it's really all it is. It's really not trying to do or say anything interesting. Or a lot of kids movies these days are about like trauma and like generational trauma and all this stuff. And even though there's like a little family story or whatever with Mario's family and that, it's nowhere near to the same in the forefront to the same extent as it is in a lot of other kids movies. But yeah, it was enjoyable. I don't think it was really great. Kids really liked it, I think, which is like primarily what you should be trying to deliver. I think a lot of kids movies these days are trying to appeal to adults, and the kids are almost an afterthought. You know? Why did I see a weird part of Twitter praising the Mario movie for correctly portraying a panic attack? I mean, it's just funny. It's like there's one moment in the end of the film when he has like a moment where he's like kind of scared or anxious and then goes out and does the thing. It's just like this minor moment of vulnerability that happens. That's like people tried to turn into something, I think, more than it is. I don't know. It was like I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But you know what I mean, though? I think there's a lot of like these ostensibly kids movies these days that are almost trying to appeal to adults more. Mario has no interest in that. Mario is not trying to appeal to anybody beyond just like the Funko Pop crowd and like little kids, you know? And that's fine, I think. I think it's fine to have movies that do that. I think a movie like Wreck-It Ralph walked that line pretty decently. Yeah, I think so. Those are pretty good. I watched the second one I believe this weekend or sometime over the last couple of days as well. I think maybe Friday night I watched that. Those are pretty decent, yeah. I like Puss in Boots more than Mario. Yeah, that was pretty good too. I saw that as well. That was pretty decent also. Like, not to get involved in the whole like woke versus non-woke argument, which I think is very silly. I do though think that it is okay sometimes for these movies to just not try and do too much. Well, Sea Beast is the example that I wanted to bring up, Old Dutch, actually. Like, maybe this is just me becoming like an old reactionary or something. I hope not. Again, I don't want to get into this woke versus non-woke thing. Like, I thought Sea Beast was very good and very well done. But then it gets into the whole part of the story, like, in the end, which is almost like, it was like a critique of, like, colonialism and how the way things, like, history gets rewritten and this kind of stuff. Which I was like, that's a political idea that I think is important. Like, I agree with that kind of message. But also, when I was watching the film, I couldn't stop myself from wondering, like, and I did enjoy the movie, but I couldn't stop myself from wondering, like, couldn't you just make a movie about, like, these, like, scary sea monsters and these kind of cool pirate guys that are hunting them? Like, couldn't you just do that also? Like, it doesn't need to be this big, like, political message that's in it, you know? Even though I agree with the message, I don't even disagree with the message. But I found myself when I was watching the movie, the cool part at the beginning is when these pirate guys are like hunting the monster, and it's like cool and fun and exciting and thrilling. And it's like, why don't you just make that? Why didn't you just make that movie? It's okay to just have evil monsters and some salty pirate guys that are hunting them. You know, you can just make that movie. You know, it's not even that I didn't like it though. Like it was good. I enjoyed it. And again, I don't even disagree with the message. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing with it. But I do think sometimes you can just like, you don't have to do that. You can just tell a simple story about pirate guys fighting monsters, and like, that's okay. That's okay to do, you know? My daughter watched Sea Beast with mom a little while ago. Hasn't asked once to rewatch it, which is why I'm giving it a 4/10 unseen. I mean, my kid liked it a lot. My son liked it a lot, but what he likes the most is like the beginning of the movie when they're like hunting these sea monsters. He kind of loses interest in the second half. That's why I like Avatar. Free of politics and just cool CGI. That's right. Exactly. Well, ironically, Avatar, I mean, it is a simple story of like good and evil, and that's why you can enjoy it. But it does have an important political message also. Like, for me, Sea Beast, the way to give that an interesting political message would just be to have the sea monsters represent like colonialism somehow. Just have the monsters represent the bad thing that we're supposed to be against, and then just have that, you know? This whole thing of like, actually the monsters are nice, and the fact that we're going around and hunting them is super evil, and making it this whole like whaling analogy or this whole reference to colonialism and that kind of stuff. I found myself watching that and being like, okay, I don't disagree, but maybe you could just have a movie where they hunt these monsters, and the monsters are just like evil and scary, and they just, you know, that's all it is, you know? Anyway. My kid has been really into Onward lately. My kid loves that as well. Yeah, it's got some moments. Honestly, I downloaded and got her hooked on Beast Wars just to feel something again. Beast Wars is cool. I liked Onward as well. It's good. Chasing the bluey dragon. That's nice. That's good. So anyway, that was my weekend. A lot of playoff basketball, Mario movie, hanging out with my son. Felt pretty sick. I'm still sick, but like, I think getting better. I think I'm better than I was yesterday. I'm not so sure. I look better. Okay, that's good. I think I'm getting better. Hello, Hassan. What's up? I had similar weekends minus hanging out with your son. I would hope so. Are you jumping on the Oilers bandwagon? I'm not going to jump on any hockey bandwagon. Again, I try to avoid getting emotionally invested in hockey because it's like too stressful. We will see if I'll see how the playoffs progress, and maybe I can watch some like after it progresses. What is air rack? Yeats boy, I don't know what that is. What is this, and why is that your like MK Ultra sleep command? What is with that? Arak the YouTuber. It shows how much I know. I'm old. I know I don't look it. I know I look like a fit, like handsome young person. I'm very old though. I don't know about this stuff. Just to be clear. I don't know about YouTubers and the different ones. I know about some of the ones because my son watches YouTubers. I know some of it like that, but not familiar with that one. And I don't want to say what you told me to say because I don't know if you're setting me up as some kind of like trick that you're going to use against me. I don't know you, and sometimes people manipulate me into saying things that I then regret. So I don't know if I want to do that. Ugh. I don't know, Marty's off on a mod power trip now. I don't know what that's about, but nothing I can do. Okay? Nothing I can do. Oh my god. Okay. I don't do a lot of like new follower shoutouts. Maybe I should. I should probably have a new follower alert, like maybe even a silent one. I've never had that. I always thought it was like I'm just gonna treat this account like I'm a more serious, like, larger account than I actually am. But I must say thank you to brand new community member Sloppy Dong Milosa Dick. I must say hello and thank you to brand new community member Sloppy Dong Milosa Dick for the follow. Thank you. Thank you for joining the community. Oh my goodness. That's a good one. I still have kind of like a cough too, so I'm chuckling and it's making me want to cough. Wow. Okay. Instant valued community member status conferred. Oh, wow. Okay. Dude, I'm sorry. I'm the guy who addressed you on Twitter last night about Ukraine. I love your shit. Despite the Ukraine difference, Sloppy Dong coming in hot. Wow. Okay. Well, no, you know what? It's like I'm totally happy to just have like regular conversations with people. Even when disagreeing about something, you know, there's so much, especially when it comes to Ukraine stuff, of like instant like anger accusations of like you support genocide and you love Putin and blah 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 and all this stuff. I'm totally happy to just like try to have just like a normal conversation with someone as long as they're chill, which you were in that case. And we'll probably talk a little bit about this today if you want to stick around. Not quite yet because I'm still getting things going here and getting the conversational juices flowing before we kind of dig into this sort of discourse. But I will talk about this today and talk about my perspective on it. But I appreciate your respectful efforts to converse with me about this. And I'm laughing still at Sloppy Dong Milosa Dick. That's very good. That's good. Oh no, it's not the dialogue guy. It's not the dialogue guy. Man, I almost felt sorry for that guy. Not totally because they kind of asked for it, but like, man, are we getting into this now? Are we getting into the discourse now? We might have no choice now, but to get into this. We may have no choice.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all
Sloppy Dong
this.
has forced our
Discourse
hand.
time.
Oh boy. Genghis Han, thank you for the 10 months of tier 1. Thank you, Genghis Han. I appreciate that. I guess we might as well. Fuck. I mean, I talked about my week. What else do we need to talk about? I did a brief thing about kids' movies. I talked about my weekend. I briefly talked about the NBA playoffs. It's been 30 minutes. You know? Maybe it's time to just dig into this stuff. Maybe it's time. I'm a YKS GOK guy. I didn't mean to be a dink. Yeah, you weren't a dink. I was a big YKS fan, but I don't think they liked me. I think I kind of I ran afoul of the YKS people like without meaning to. I was a big fan of the podcast and loved being part of the community and was kind of trying to ingratiate myself with them. And I think I somehow pissed them off or something. I don't know. What the hell is YKS? It's the podcast Your Kickstarter Sucks. They were because I tweeted about my whole Fox News thing the other day, over the weekend. It was that Twitter controversy prompt, and I tweeted my video from when I was on Fox News, which I think people enjoyed. I was laughing at some of the reactions to that from people that hadn't seen it. Because when that happened and everyone was yelling at me about MS-13, I put the YKS phone number in the voicemail number in my Twitter bio and got them to have all these kinds of deranged calls from these right-wing guys that were mad, which I think was funny at first, but I think at some point, I don't know, I ran afoul of some of these folks. Anyway, no disrespect intended. I do still think the podcast is very funny. So we might as well do this now. Now I'm just trying to think of a snappy title. No, that doesn't make sense. I got to think of a snappy title for this segment, and then we're gonna get going here. We are going to talk about Mark Hamill. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I think that's going to be our entrance point into some of our chat today. Got in a duel. I wouldn't even say it was a beef. It wasn't a beef. I tried to respectfully signal to Mark Hamill that maybe he was getting involved with something that he maybe didn't have full comprehension of. It was a light saber battle. Oh my goodness. Oh my. Could the segment be called Star Wars? Because he's a movie star and he's talking about a war, and we're also getting an online posting battle. Is that because that's kind of snappy, right? What's your saber color? Is it red? I would say no. Even though I think the Jedi are quite sus. I think the main theme, I think, of Star Wars is, oddly enough, as much as it gets framed as being a battle between good and evil, are that the Jedi are actually pretty inept and kind of fucked up, and bring about the whole Jedi genocide and the fall of the Republic through their own kind of dogmatism. Light side Sith. I know Lodane beats the light side Sith. Beats the light side Sith drum a lot. Maybe that's where I stand as well. The Jedi are kind of libs. Yeah. I was always partial to the green saber, though. The Empire, the Return of the Jedi green saber. I do enjoy that one, though. But let's look at this. Real Jedi drink Bud Light. On the Bud Light thing, again, talking about it, like I'm old. I don't really know who Dylan Mulvaney is. I don't really pay attention to all this kind of stuff. I knew that they're like a trans influencer. Like that's all I really knew about the situation. But I didn't really like, I don't really know who they are. I didn't really pay much attention to it. The whole like right-wing freak out over Bud Light. Like I just assumed that they had like hired Dylan Mulvaney as like a spokesperson. Like that was my understanding just by looking at the right-wing freakout over it. But like I didn't realize until I think yesterday that whole freakout over Bud Light, which they've been talking about for about 2 weeks straight now, every single day. Every day just waking up super mad about Bud Light. Like that's what I assumed is like, yeah, like a Super Bowl level campaign. Like that's what I thought. I didn't realize until yesterday that it was literally a single sponsored Instagram post that Bud Light sent Dylan Mulvaney some like product and was like, can you do a post on your Instagram? You're a popular social media influencer. Can you do a little post on Instagram about Bud Light, a little sponsored post? And that's all it was. It was like one 45-second sponsored post. And this is like widespread. This is like a widespread marketing thing. Yeah, let's throw some, like send, like me. Like they fucking Rain Energy sent me a bunch of product because they're like, yeah, he's going to drink it on stream while I'm talking about like Stalin and all this stuff. Like, this is like a very common thing. They find some influencer like, oh yeah, we'll send them some product. You get a little sponsored media post out about it.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob needs a Bud Light Lime sponsor.
That is true, King Uendo. Thank you for the 30 months of Tier 1 and for all the support that you've shown me in the channel, King Uendo. I absolutely do need a Bud Light Lime sponsor. I mean, it's a product that I genuinely enjoy. I've advertised this fucking product without being sent any for free, just because I enjoy it. I think it's refreshing. So I didn't realize, though, that, and I guess this is part of the title that I have here. You know what? Hold on. I just have to check one thing. No exposure on again. Click that off. Now I'm too dark. Go up here. All my settings got reset here. Hold on just one moment. Just one moment. Hold that thought. My settings seem to have been reset. That's better. I'm not blurry. Okay, good. Good to know. Okay, so that's the thing, though, is that I didn't realize that all of this controversy was about one sponsored Instagram post. I really thought, like, I just assumed that she was like the new spokesperson or something. They were doing like a big campaign. But it was literally just like, we'll send Dylan Mulvaney some product and do a little sponsored Instagram post. The entire 2-week pants-pissing freakout has been over this one Instagram post. But I think there's a new can. I think they just made a can for her. They're not like selling, I don't believe anyway, unless I'm wrong. They're not like selling Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light cans. They're just like, hey, we'll make you a special can. We'll send it to you. You can show it in your Instagram post. And that's all. And the entire like 2-week-long pants shitting freakout over it has been because of that.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Belosum, thank you for the Tier 1 sub. Brand new community member. We love it. Belosum, just 23 months away, Belosum, from your exclusive, highly elite 24-month TRRS sub badge. I love seeing new community members join the community. That always makes me very happy. So, like, that's the amazing thing. I think that normally, hold on, let me just go back here. It wouldn't surprise me if Bud Light did this campaign knowing it would cause this controversy because controversy is still press. Everyone's talking about Bud Light. That's the point of marketing. And I think there's something to that, but like Prime Bars is saying, these big companies sponsor little queer events all the time. It's just the ones that got picked up by the right-wing freakout machine. Like all these big companies, they sponsor pride parades and stuff like that. They have for years, and no one has ever really cared all that much about it. Like that's the fucking these dumbass conservatives that think a brand is now woke or a brand is like commie because it does a promoted ad with a trans influencer or like sponsors a float in a pride parade, while all these big beer companies are still funding right-wing politicians. Like they fund right-wing politicians who are engaging in like this trans genocide on one hand, and then throw a couple bucks to trans influencers or a pride parade on the other hand. This is what brands do. Brands are not like woke or non-woke or like left-wing or right-wing. They're literally just trying to make money. They're trying to appeal to different groups. That's all. So it was really amazing to realize over the weekend that this entire massive freakout, again, it's been 2 weeks of this, has been over this massive company, which you could classify as any big company, you could classify as being right-wing conservative. They sponsor and fund right-wing politicians. Did one sponsored Instagram post with a trans influencer, and now she's getting like, there's like fucking, what's that guy? The Veritas report, the Project Veritas guy, literally like following around and harassing her. Being like, a trans person just shot up a shopping mall, but what do you think about that? And just like, well, she's trying to go about her business. Or like fucking harassing and doxing the marketing executive, the Bud Light marketing executive, because of a single sponsored Instagram post. James O'Keefe, that's right. Fucking loser. Huge loser. It's truly amazing to me. Like I really genuinely thought that they had hired her as like a spokesperson. Like I don't understand, like that's why you would freak out about that, but I was like, okay, well at least like that's like a major kind of like marketing campaign that they're doing. But it was an Instagram post. It was one single Instagram post. You know, that's all. And anyway, I would appeal to Bud Light to send me some product. Send me some Bud Light Lime. I would be more than happy to do any kind of sponsored post. I enjoy Bud Light Lime and its companion beer, Bud Light Strawberry Lemonade. I think it's very refreshing. I enjoy this beverage. I'd be more than happy to advertise for this product. I don't think, I'm sure they knew that there would be some kind of reaction. I don't think they predicted a 2-week freak out from like every single like right-wing media influencer. I don't think they expected that. And you see, because now they're trying to do this like corporate thing where they're trying to like, we love America. Did you see their like PR? Not an apology, but like, we love and respect everyone, and it just trying to do this like both sides thing, which obviously just meant nothing. None of the right-wing people were comforted in any way, and it's because they looked cowardly by appealing to it at all. So that was funny as well. We love America says massive Belgian multinational conglomerate. That's right. That was funny. Anyway, I was truly just astounded that level of freak out was over a sponsored Instagram post. And all these people that try to be taken seriously, there are so many problems with America. There's people being tortured to death right now in American prisons, you know? As we talked about on Friday. There's quite literally people every single day who have not been convicted of any crime, who are being tortured to death in American prisons. And the primary thing that these people are concerned with every single day, like, and if it's not that, it's the next product. It's whatever product does any remote effort to like appeal to people with this banal message of like inclusivity. There's razors, there was Gillette razors a couple years ago, remember? But Bud Light's sponsored Instagram post for a trans influencer. This is the main thing that these people are fixated on. They do like that part. I get that. Yeah. I get that. But fuck. You know, it's pretty grim. It's pretty grim shit that these people spend they try to be they want to be taken seriously. And they spend every day being mad at a beer company for a single sponsored Instagram post. Let's actually look at it. It's the most banal possible thing you can imagine a big freak out over. New York Post, Coors. Hold on, let's look at some of these headlines here. Coors stock surges 9% after backlash to Bud Light's Mulvaney campaign. From the New York Post. The 2023 Coors Light Denver Pride Parade. Uh-oh. Oh, there's people paying attention to this? Oh, shit. The Coors Light Denver Pride Parade in 2023. Are people going to get mad about it? They should, you know? You just can't. It's just the most miserable way to go through life. You just can't enjoy anything. No more products, no more films or anything like that. It just seems like the worst way to live. Like, just going through life, like I can't watch a movie or TV show without like mentally calculating the wokeness percentage that it's communicating to people. You know, these people also now believe trans people have to kill their kids or whatever. Absolutely, yeah. But it speaks to just the level of the constant like fire hose of hate that people and hateful propaganda that people are just like inundated with. The fascists have to have slop to throw to the hogs, and libs eat up the corporate allyship. Everyone wins. Yeah, exactly. And you know, you show what your political beliefs are by buying this product or this product. You know? Where's the actual ad though? Like, look at this shit.
The Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills. Dylan Mulvaney is inside the women's restroom right now, so I'm going to ask him for comment about our story regarding women being raped in prison by men claiming to be transgender.
Like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with her accepting a case of Bud Light for a sponsored Instagram post? And like the idea of people being raped in prison, that's an endemic systemic problem that's been going on for the entire time the American prison system has been in existence. It's not trans people. Not trans people that are the only people that are engaging in sexual assaults in the barbaric American prison system. Which again, this man supports. This man spends his entire life supporting this system and wants to increase the level of violence and wants to increase the level of misery that people in the prison system are living under. Yeah, he's very genuinely concerned about the human rights situation in the carceral state. Absolutely. And this isn't like, none of this should even be like a defense. This is not a defense of like Dylan Mulvaney. I have no idea who this was. I only learned about this because of this massive freakout. But like, what the fuck does that have anything to do?
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you for the gifted sub to Pride Bars, Don Dark Sony. Like, she did a sponsored Instagram post for Bud Light, and now this man's like harassing her in a hotel, sticking a microphone in her face, asking about trans prison rapes. Like, what the fuck?
Here we go. Dylan, this is James O'Keefe, OMG. Women are being raped in a prison in Washington State by men claiming to be transgender. There's footage of them talking about the rape. Do you have a comment?
This is psychotic.
Of the women being raped by the men claiming to be transgender.
This is fucking psychotic.
James O'Keefe, OMG News. What do you think about the women who are being raped by the men who are transgender? Do you have a comment about that?
Please don't come in the elevator.
What do you think about, what is your comment to the women are being raped by?
Like that, I don't even know what to say about that. Like, that's unbelievably psychotic. This is because of an Instagram post, a single Instagram post, where she was like, hey, Bud Light, it's cool. Where's the actual ad? I would like to find the actual ad. This person, Ollie London, is an interesting example too, where it's just like, all you have to do to be like a right-wing influencer is just say the words. Ollie London, who's now some expert in detransition. Ollie London is some fucking lunatic who got multiple plastic surgeries to look Korean and now is some kind of like expert on trans issues. And gets taken seriously in right-wing media. Here's the ad. Here it is. From Benny Johnson. This is it. This is what all this is over.
Hi! Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So, I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. And I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it. Check out my Instagram story to see how you can enjoy March Madness with Bud Light and maybe win some money too. Love ya! Cheers! Go team! Whatever team you love, I love too. Okay.
That's it. That's all that this is over. I think the chatbot thesis about these guys scaring the normies is 100% correct. I do think so. Yeah, I do think the thing is though, as much as like I don't think there's a lot of normal people that really care all that much about this stuff. Like, that doesn't change the fact that politically there still is this massive project that's being enacted.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Florida is ground zero.
She is not
of
enjoying
this.
that beer, LMAO.
Ben Bang Boom 10, thank you for the 17 months tier 1. Yeah, for sure. Florida is ground zero of this, but there is this like state-sponsored like genocidal campaign right now targeting trans people in particular, but all LGBTQ people. So I think I don't think there's a small minority of people that are truly obsessed with this, the Matt Walshes of the world and these extremely online like lunatic conservatives. But I think we can recognize that, and the fact that like most average people don't care that much about whether someone is transgender or not. It's not a new issue. It's not something, as much as these guys try to present it as this new thing, it's not something that just started happening in 2017 or whatever. It's been going on for decades and decades. Well, and centuries, and as long as human beings have existed, because as we know, that gender is not actually this like strict binary, but is actually a spectrum. This is not like a controversial thing in either biology or anthropology. And as we've talked about, most people, even very reactionary people, even bigoted people, upon the news of learning that like one of their friends or colleagues is transgender, is probably just going to be like, yeah, okay, I guess it's a she now. And like, that's the extent to which they think about it. That's the extent to which they think about it. So I think that's true in many ways, that a lot of this does turn off a lot of normies. I think like we saw in the midterm elections a couple months ago, or whenever it was, I've lost track of time. But I think we saw they built like a campaign around these issues, and no one cares. That's the amazing thing, is that there's so many legitimate things that conservatives could be attacking Democrats on and attacking the Biden administration on, with Ukraine, with the inflation, with these economic policies, with the fact that like under Republicans during COVID, there was this like welfare state in America that actually did get improved and was actually helping millions of people. and was been dismantled under the Biden administration, amazingly, which is something that they could talk to, but because they don't agree with those policies, they don't do that. They fixate on these issues, and it does turn off a lot of normal people. But I also don't want to downplay it at the same time, because politically, there is a political campaign right now that is deliberately targeting trans people, especially trans kids, trying to get gender affirming care across the country, which is like extremely terrifying and violent. So I don't want to downplay that either at the same time. Like in Florida right now, it's fucking disturbing the way that like they're making it easier to get the death penalty in certain cases. You don't need unanimous consent. You need 8 jurors. That's one rule change. Number 2 is like instant death penalty for anyone that's accused of like child sexual abuse. And number 3, suggesting that any public like drag performance is inherently child sexual abuse. So they're literally in Florida setting the stage to like have just cause to like imprison trans people and drag performers and give them the death penalty. Like that's literally, I'm not even being hyperbolic. Like that's actually being enacted in Florida right now. Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Marty. It's being made into a huge issue on one side. The other side doesn't really care. That also extends to caring when people in the trans community keep getting killed left and right. Exactly. So I think we can hold 2 thoughts in our mind at the same time about this. That I think it does scare the normies, this kind of obsession with trans stuff and people's genitals and like, especially kids and this kind of stuff. I think it does scare normal people, and I don't think it's an election winner, but regardless of whether it's an election winner or not, there are still extremely draconian laws being put into place deliberately targeting transgender people with these extremely violent policies, which is terrifying. But I think this is my main takeaway, though, that it's just like this massive freak out over Dylan Mulvaney is over this. It's over this 45-second sponsored post, which is just, I think it's a sign of how completely unserious all of these folks are. Democrats would be like, transgender rights are under attack, give us $50 to fight, and doesn't do anything, or gives red meat to the anti-trans movement, enacting these like trans sports, engaging with that whole like dialogue and discourse and throwing fuel on that, even though it's been proven to be an election loser. That's the amazing thing about Democrats. They're actually contributing to it. You saw the same thing with the New York Times this weekend. The New York Times putting out that story like, there's this dangerous anti-trans campaign going on right now. How did this happen? While the New York Times is quite literally part of that exact campaign. When New York Times writers wrote a letter to their editor to push back on this trend of this kind of like liberal style, just asking questions, sort of transphobia, they got angry at the people that wrote the letter rather than actually adjusting their coverage in any way. And they're still soliciting stories about to kind of feed this narrative about trans kids being forced to undergo hormone treatment or puberty blockers or whatever it is. So that's the amazing thing, is that as much as it's an electoral loser for the right, and it does scare the normies, you still have liberal institutions like the Democratic Party, like the New York Times, getting on board as well with the liberal version, the like chin stroking, just asking questions kind of transphobia, rather than the outright like lunatic right wing version of it. It's an electoral loser. Well, I think we saw in the midterms that like the Republicans fumbled the bag in the midterms. They could have had an historic red wave in the midterms, but they fixated on this rather than anything that actually affects people's lives, and they got fucking creamed. So yeah, I think it is.
some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Ambiguebot, thank you very much for the raid. Hello, Ambiguebot. I'm sorry you tuned in right as I'm like hacking out along on the mic. That was good timing there. I appreciate the raid, Ambiguebot. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope your stream was good today. Welcome, raiders. I know I'm sick, sloppy dong. Jesus Christ, that's not gonna get less funny for me having to say out loud. I'm actually better than I was last week. I was really sick last week and this weekend, and I'm actually on the mend, I think. But yes. Anyway, I hope the Ambiguebot stream was good today. Welcome to the new chatters and raiders. Please smash the follow button. I am Rob Rousseau. I am a socialist here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And I do this stream, TRRS, every single day. Noon Eastern, that's 1 a.m. Pyongyang time. Thank you for joining again. Smash the follow button. If you can. I think this was the main thing that I wanted to talk about with this. This whole Bud Light transgender fucking freak out from these absolute weirdos was literally over a 45-second Instagram post. I really did think, because of just the level of saturation that it got, that it was because of something more significant than that or substantial. That like they had actually hired Dylan Mulvaney as like a official spokesperson or something, which is not true. It was a single 45-second Instagram post. And these completely unserious people are just losing their goddamn minds over it still, like for 2 weeks now, 2 weeks straight. So I don't know if there's anything else on that we wanted to talk about. I guess maybe now I can get into the main crux of what I was going to do, which is this Mark Hamill tweet. Now, if you can see that I'm like a little bit more high energy today after being sick, I did have one of these prior to the stream. Shout out to Monster Ultra, the white can. I know we got a couple of enjoyers of that particular product in the chat. I'm also on one of those like daytime cold medication things. I mean, they started the CRT in elementary schools thing over something that didn't even exist. Yeah, I mean, I do think that this is something that it just changes shape. It morphs ever so slightly every couple of months. You know, the whole woke obsession. I think the different thing now is because of these mass communication platforms, maybe it's taken off to a certain extent more than it did before, but like they've been having this conversation for decades. Like you can literally trace back like newspaper headlines from 100 years ago talking about like college campuses and like, oh, they're so sensitive and they believe in these progressive social issues. I mean, it's been going on for forever. You know, it was political correctness, then it was social justice warriors. You know, it's wokeness. It was CRT. It was the fixation for a while. Now it's gay and transgender issues and drag shows. Like it subtly changes shape, this weird obsession and fixation every couple of months. But it's been the same thing. It's been going on for forever, right? It's been going on forever, this whole thing. This fixation on college campuses and progressive language and these progressive social issues. Wanting to be slightly more inclusive, you know? Like you can point to brands like jumping on board this kind of like rainbow inclusivity marketing shtick. I mean, this has been going on for decades. Like the idea this is some new phenomenon. And that's why it's so funny to me. You know, pride parades have been big business for like a long time. You got every single bank and all these big brands sponsoring all these events since the 90s. Not some new thing. It's the really amazing thing. People think that some shift has happened in the last like few years where these brands, these left-wing communist brands are all being run by these like liberal progressive propagandists with the woke mind virus, and not just like fucking business people that want to make money and market their product to as many different people as they can. You know, like this is not a new phenomenon. It's so bizarre to me how they think this is some shift that's happened. You know, I went to Pride parades 20 years ago that were sponsored by Budweiser and Coors and all these different brands. It's strange. It's strange, this fixation that they have on these things. The Budweiser frogs are trans now. The right is seething mad. I mean, that would be a good campaign. As we know from Jurassic Park, some frogs do have the biological ability to change their gender in certain same-sex environments. There's a central plot point in Jurassic Park. So maybe they will go trans. I think Budweiser should do that and really go all in on this kind of stuff. It's a dialectic, so of course the mouth-breathing hogs don't get it. It's really amazing. It's really amazing. Life finds a way. That's right. Absolutely. Many organisms do. Yeah, but Jurassic Park is woke now. Wow. I mean, Jeff Goldblum does have a African American daughter in Jurassic Park 2: The Lost World. This wokeness just getting out of control. This is intersex erasure. I'm a Jurassic Park dinosaur, and I've said this for years. There we go. What did y'all think the T in T-Rex stood for? Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I was actually interested in the whole, Lilo and Stitch, to go back to, the woke movie phenomenon. The whole, Lilo and Stitch. They're doing the live-action version of that. And interestingly enough, considering how Disney is, ground zero for these, wokeness accusations, and it's significantly less woke than the original Lilo and Stitch movie 25 years ago or whatever. Whose characters are indigenous Hawaiians, and the older sister character, she's got a sort of regular looking body. If that was released today, all these people would be losing their fucking minds over Lilo and Stitch and how woke it is. And now they're hiring white Hawaiian actors to portray the characters in the live action film that they're doing. It's less woke than the original film from 25 years ago. Actually, the raptors were trans men and were being misgendered with clever girl. That's why they killed him. That's good. The right still hasn't recovered that they took away the bunny's tits in Space Jam. Lola Bunny became significantly less fuckable. That's very unfortunate. So much of this boils down to cartoon characters and how attractive they are. These are not serious people. Again, this is their whole political ideology is about fucking cartoon characters, brands doing advertising to different groups, people of color being cast in films. That's all these people think about. April O'Neil is a good example as well. Yeah. What did they do to the rabbit's mommy milkers? This is what I want to know. Sam Smith doing Satanism. One of the most boring pop stars. And again, this shit is not new. Look at hair metal in the 80s. All these teased hair, leotard, Satan worshipping people. Which was they were icons of virile masculinity in the 1980s. You know? This is not this new phenomenon. A fucking boring pop star doing something kind of controversial. Madonna, in the 80s. This is not a fucking new phenomenon. None of this is a new phenomenon. None of this is a new phenomenon. Radio Free Amanda just reminded me of that bold ass quote. That was one of the all-time absolutely nailed America. Just destroyed America with that quote. The US has no heroes. You were supposed to take out Spider-Man and SpongeBob. God, that just still is devastating. That was one of the most devastating burns and accurate. Devastating and accurate burns. That was fantastic. Anyway, these are just all thoughts I've been having as I've been watching these kind of conversations taking place. Specifically the Bud Light thing, I think has just been kind of brain breaking for me because I realized this weekend how the extent of the freak out over it versus how just totally boring and banal literally a 45-second sponsored Instagram post. Yeah, I did see that. I don't want to read that entire quote, Carrier Wave, but that was actually very devastating. Say what you want about them. You know, if some people I know are not fans of Russia. Many good reasons for that. Russia also very reactionary and very hostile to LGBTQ people, which is horrendous and not something that I agree with or support in any way. They're like spokespeople, though, do have some, I think, things to say which are fairly insightful about the West and about America. Lavrov is another person. I think even if you might not agree with all the things he says, when he speaks, sometimes you're like, yeah, okay, well, he's got kind of a point there. When they get into this decadent culture war stuff, then that's when I think that there are fucking monsters that need to be defeated as well. Yeah, the Russian versus Chinese media memes. Like the Russian is like, America has like 56 genders now. And China's like, look at this panda doing a makeshift acrobat performance at the zoo. Look at this old man like doing some cool stuff. Like that's what it is. Yeah, sometimes they're very hilarious. I mean, it's impossible to. I think that's a great example, Carrier Wave, of the exact kind of quote that I'm referring to there. Like when they're talking about geopolitics and not this bullshit culture war stuff, I often am a lot more willing to listen to what they have to say. If you're upset about Ukraine, here's some advice. Pretend it's happening in Africa. Pretend it's the Middle East. Pretend it's Palestine. Now you don't have to care. I mean, the hypocrisy is like pretty astounding. And this is something that we're going to get into today with what we've been talking about. I post so much people's daily stuff on Facebook and my aunt loves it. It's a good way to China pill people. Anyway, maybe now we should get into this Mark Hamill situation, because not only did the Mark Hamill post kind of go viral over the weekend, but also my response to it, and then some of the people that were responding to my response, I saw got like screenshotted and then were subjected to their own viral tweets from a whole different bunch of different people. Brandon, if you've been hanging out in this stream for this long and you're still not China pilled, I don't know if I can help you. I don't know, Brandon. Sometimes I don't think you're serious enough about trying to, really, really get into this stuff. Frankly. Hello, Dr. Awesome. What is up? I hate your take on Ukraine, but man, I love your good take on Hamill's insane shit. Well, we are going to get to that sloppy dong, and maybe I can change your mind. Maybe I can actually, because one of the reasons that I don't often get in these conversations on Twitter anymore is because I just don't find it's a great way to have dialogue.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Happy April 17th, friends.
Brain Damage, thank you for the 14 months tier 1. Sir Brain Damage, thank you very much for that. You're telling me the guy that voiced the Joker has shitty politics. Well, you'd think maybe he would be better, considering Star Wars, as George Lucas himself has outlined, is literally like the Empire in Star Wars is America. They're the evil empire. This is in no uncertain terms in Star Wars. This is like articulated. And the rebels were supposed to represent the Viet Cong, as we've talked about before. Boots Riley talks about this a lot as well. And George Lucas has openly talked about this also. We've talked about it a number of times. So maybe you'd think Mark Hamill might get the message a little bit more. Anyways, as I was saying, one of the reasons I don't really do this discourse that much on Twitter is because I don't think it's a very valuable platform to have these conversations. Sloppy dong. I think our interaction was maybe a rare example of an actual conversation that can take place that's maybe nuanced or is respectful or whatever. Often I talk about these things and people just say, oh, fuck you, you support Putin. and then that's the end of it. So I just don't bother. Whereas here you can actually come and like talk about these things and talk about them. It's not just like a short tweet or whatever, but it's like a actual opportunity to talk about things with nuance and at length. So maybe if we actually talk about these things on here, you might see my perspective a little bit more. Anyway, here's Mark Hamill. It was a pleasure meeting with the brave Ukrainian drone operators. By the way, if anyone could, I don't know if I know how to find it. I know it's been posted in the Discord server in the months ago. If anyone could find the image of Zelensky wearing the shirt that has a stormtrooper, a Ukrainian flag stormtrooper, stomping on a Soviet cosmonaut helmet, which to me should really be an example of like the way that this exact conflict is not this like ideological battle between good and evil, as Mark Hamill seems to think it is, and as many liberals seem to think it is. You know, the stormtroopers who were like unequivocally the bad guys in those films, stomping on the helmet of a Soviet cosmonaut, who were like scientists and explorers and heroes, you know? Was it a Mandalorian? I thought it was a stormtrooper. You know, and that's what I think, as I've talked about before, I think one of the biggest tragedies of this whole conflict is the way that the Soviet legacy in Ukraine is being erased and stomped on in this way. And Ukraine has this beautiful legacy of socialism and anti-fascism, and how Ukrainians, millions of Ukrainians, correctly and bravely fought in the Red Army against the Nazis. And that entire legacy is being completely dismantled. And the legacy of these like Ukrainian nationalists who helped carry out the Holocaust, like people in the UPA, which this red and black flag is. Monsters who massacred Jews and Polish people during World War II, and how they've been reframed as these like anti-Soviet nationalists, you know, and rehabilitated. And this entire Soviet legacy in Ukraine is being stamped out, and these fucking monstrous fascists are being upheld and promoted and whitewashed and rehabilitated. I think that's a fucking tragedy. Like, if anyone hears about my commentary on this and you get the impression that I think Ukraine is just filled with Nazis, I don't think that. Obviously, it has a Nazi problem. I don't think that at all. But that's one of the problems, though, is that the non-Nazi legacy is being erased, and that nationalist, anti-Soviet, fascist, sympathizing side is being promoted. I think that's a really terrible thing. And I think it spits on the fucking graves of the millions of Ukrainians that bravely fought against fascism and were part of this Soviet project, that were part of this important project of creating an alternative system to imperialist, colonialist capitalism. You know, as much as we talk about the Holodomor and like the idea that the Soviets were oppressing Ukraine was an integral, vital part of the Soviet Union for decades and decades and decades after that event. Just posted the pic in the TRRS channel as well. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, like, what the fuck? And it literally says, like, just to make it as clear as possible, come to the dark side with the Ukraine flag, dominate or die. The mercenary, I thought it was a stormtrooper. Some people are saying Mandalorian. The Ukraine flag stormtrooper stomping on a Soviet cosmonaut. Like, it could not be more clear what the dynamic here is. I don't know. And then you have Mark Hamill, who has been like, he's one of these like Hollywood liberals that's been like pulled into this, that thinks he's like helping out the good guys because Russia bad. Like, There's like a dialectic there, I think, that is amazing to me that people don't realize what's going on. The war encourages this dark racist shit, which is why the invasion was bad. Well, listen, one thing I will agree on is that I don't support the invasion of Ukraine, no matter what like context there is, or even though as I've talked about many times, this is very controversial, but I am somewhat sympathetic to Russia's position of, since the fall of the Soviet Union, the decade of humiliation and devastation that Russia endured after that period, and Ukraine as well. It was a massive human rights disaster. The expansion of NATO, the arming and funding of these like militia groups in the post-Euromaidan period. Like, these are all things that have antagonized Russia over and over again. Russia has said, this is our red line. Stop doing what you're doing. And NATO and these Western countries just continued doing the very thing that they were saying not to do over and over and over repeatedly. And people like John Mearsheimer, not Putinists or not socialists or anti-imperialists, years ago were saying, like, we have to stop this or Ukraine is going to get wrecked. Setting all that aside, no matter what context there is or what excuses or what high-minded ideals you want to talk about, in wars, like, it's devastating for people. It's devastating for civilians. Terrible, horrible things happen. And that's not something that I support, even though I am a lot more sympathetic to Russia's position than I think a lot of people in our country are. That provoking is the whole point, though. I think we can hold two ideas in our minds at the same time, as I've been talking about for the last year and a half or whatever. I think we can and should talk about how this was provoked. That doesn't mean you think that it's okay or that war is good. I don't think that. But we can't pretend, though, that this is what gets described as the unprovoked imperialist invasion of Russia. Like, that's just not reality. That's not what happened. My point that I have been making on this program and elsewhere for the last year and a half or longer, because I've been talking about this for a while now. You can go back to podcasts of mine from like 2020 and 2019 where I was talking about Ukraine and Canada's role in arming and funding these Nazi groups. My whole point that I've made is that the West, Canada, and the US did encourage this situation. We fanned the flames of this conflict for decades. There was many off-ramps. To this. There was the Minsk agreements, which Russia participated in. It was 10 years of civil war going on before this invasion started. There was the Minsk agreements, which people like Angela Merkel have pointed out, have openly admitted that were total bullshit, that they never had intended to follow through on. There was so many ways to avoid this, and Canada and the US just continued pushing up against those red lines over and over and over again. So my point has always been the idea that this was just unjustified and unprovoked is just not true. We did provoke it. And you don't have to like it or like Putin or like Russia in order to just acknowledge this basic fact. We provoked it. It doesn't make it okay, but we provoked it. And we've encouraged it and prolonged it by, rather than negotiating or having any kind of dialogue or discourse, have just continued pumping arms into the country. It's been a fucking bonanza for the arms manufacturers who've just pumped billions of dollars into the country, prolonging the conflict for this long period of time, only to have the exact same outcome that it would have had if it had been over in a week. The idea that these eastern regions are going to come back to Ukraine is just not going to happen. It's not. It's just not going to happen. The idea that Crimea is going to go back to Ukraine, it's not going to happen. No matter whether you think it's fair or not, it's not happening. So the exact same result is going to happen that could have been figured out very early on, but instead it's been a year and a half now of misery and war and conflict, only to have the same result. I was gonna respond to some of Brandon's comments, but I see it's been enough for John. It's been probably a year of just asking questions stuff from Brandon Bimble, who I don't think I'd ever had any actual intention of changing his viewpoint on any of this, changing his viewpoint on this in any way. And I think was sometimes it's just deliberately antagonizing me, frankly. So Brandon, if you're still watching, I'm sorry, but my mods have had enough. I tried to keep you around, but my mods have had enough of this. It's been kind of a long time coming. I agree with you about holding two ideas at the same time. Nuance is key. The West fucked up, but Russia chose to invade and end tens of thousands of lives. I'm with you. The fault is on both sides. I mean, that's been my main point, you know? Not like Russia good, not that I think Putin is this fucking great guy. Like I said, there's plenty to criticize when it comes to Russia. And no matter what high-minded ideas you have about a war going on, terrible, horrible things happen to innocent people in any war. So that's not something I'm ever going to support. But what I do push back on is the idea that it's been this, what does it say in the media? The unprovoked, unnecessary, good versus evil, Star Wars style conflict, which it gets presented as in our media and by people like Mark Hamill, which this fucking t-shirt by Zelensky should do enough to dispel in the first place. But let's look at this tweet though, finally, after spending an hour and a half setting the table for this. Nukes are stationed at the naval base in Crimea. They were not going to wait for Ukraine to attack it. I mean, the Crimea thing is a big thing, right? People get very angry. How can you say Crimea should stay with Russia? Like, number one, historically, it's filled with a lot of people that speak Russian. Historically, it's been part of Russia. Khrushchev only gave it to Ukraine like a few decades ago. And the idea that after the Euromaidan took place, which was an obvious color revolution, I know that's controversial sometimes. When you have a big protest movement happens that takes out a government which was in the process of foregoing an IMF loan to instead do a better deal with Russia, then there's the Euromaidan protest. John McCain and Hillary Clinton and all these people show up at the Euromaidan. 2 years later, McCain and Lindsey Graham are in there like hanging out with these Azov guys going like, yeah, we'll give you whatever weapons you want as long as you fight the Russians. Like, fuck, it's pretty clear what's going on there. I know sometimes it's hard for people to accept that, but it's pretty clear what's going on. But the idea that after that, Russia was just going to sit back and let a now pro-NATO, pro-EU Ukraine, anti-Russian government take over, hold Crimea, which is home to Russia's most important military base, and that they were just going to sit back and let that happen. I mean, that is just never an option for them. That was just never an option. And the idea, again, the people that hold out this idea, they're like, well, the war can't end as long as Russia has Crimea. It's not going to end until Crimea goes back to Ukraine and until all these eastern regions go back to Ukraine. Well, that's not going to happen. So if you can just accept that, if you can just accept the reality that the Crimea is not going back, there was a chance for these eastern regions to still be part of Ukraine. That time is past now. That's gone. That opportunity is gone now. So the two options on the table are endless quagmire in which more people die, more misery happens, more refugees are created, or you just accept that these regions are gone, you have a negotiated settlement, and you can stop the conflict and stop the bloodshed. And I'll also point out as well that once this moment does come, the western part of Ukraine is just going to be this completely kleptocratic, native, like Western colony filled with heavily armed, extremely reactionary fascist groups. So the idea that afterwards it's going to go back to being some like peaceful bastion of democracy and freedom is also not accurate as well. Someone proposed an alternative course of action for Russia. Well, that's what they're saying. They're saying only endless conflict, or Russia just has to agree that after the whole last year and a half and the military cost to them, they're just going to like leave and just give those regions back. It's not going to happen. I mean, you know, that's just not what's going to happen. So you might as well just accept that. Accept the idea that this is just the way things are now. And again, that's not being a Putinist. That's being a materialist, you know? In the same way that I wouldn't call myself a Stalinist or a Dengist, but I am a materialist, though. And you can recognize the material reality and the historical materialism at work in these situations. In any of these situations. And I think I'm taking a materialist outlook on this as well. Or trying to. Maybe I'm stuck on the injustice Russia has wrought on Ukraine. IMH are the only just options for Russia to leave and Russia to keep Crimea. But they're not leaving these eastern regions. I mean, they're just not going to. They tried to make a peace deal with these regions with the Minsk agreements, and they were instantly violated. And Canada and the U.S. just kept pumping arms into this country, and were CIA training, like the CIA and Canadian intelligence and British intelligence were training all these like fascist militias that we see in this video. And so, like, you know, I'm anti-war. I don't support that. But when I'm recognize these historical conditions that Russia's been just repeatedly antagonized by the West for like a century, not just like the last 10 years, not just since the fall of the Soviet Union, but since the Russian Revolution, it's been this nonstop antagonism, except for a brief period in World War II where they were correctly allies. And then immediately went right back to the anti-Russian, anti-communist Cold War style politics immediately, even during World War II. I mean, the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was like basically the transition back to, there was a threat to the Soviet Union more than it was an effort to do anything with Japan, which was basically already defeated. So that's it. I don't support war.
We simply
what I am
use
sympathetic
the computer
of,
to mark up the size of the account.
What I am sympathetic, I'm going to get to your comment in a moment though, Dimitri. What I am sympathetic to though is the idea that Russia had a red line, and that it's just been this repeated, NATO and Canada and the Western countries and the US obviously just kept pushing and pushing and pushing up to those red lines when they said specifically for years, stop doing what you're doing or there's going to be consequences. Like, I don't support war. I don't. But just realistically, materially, if you're a country and you're saying openly, this is a security threat to us, there's going to be consequences if you continue this. If you don't eventually act on that, what are people around the world supposed to think? Oh, we can just do whatever we want to. They're not going to actually do anything. Like, after a certain point, they're put in a position where it's like we've been saying there's going to be consequences for this for years now. Like, what that's the thing I'm sympathetic to. Like, what are they supposed to do after a certain point when they repeatedly, their security concerns are being completely ignored and the Western NATO countries are just continuing the exact same behaviors for years and years and years and years and years, pushing up to that red line over and over and over and over again. Like, fuck. After a certain point, I don't know what they're supposed to do. And that's as sympathetic as I can get. Again, I'm anti-war. I think the invasion is horrible. But I'm sympathetic to at least that perspective. You know what's so funny about all this? Where the fuck were those libs during the most recent war between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Oh, and I wanted to get to Dimitri's comment. Thank you, Dimitri. I wear the badge Stalinist proudly because it actually translates to one who wins and can solidify a revolutionary socialist movement. I mean, I've talked before about, this idea that you can be a socialist, and you can even say positive things about the Soviet Union, but be like, oh no, but Stalin was bad. Like, that to me is a politically incoherent position. And you can acknowledge mistakes that happened and terrible things that happened. But I think you also have the materialist version of that is you have to acknowledge that, there was a massive increase in overall living standards during that period. The Soviet Union was held together. Very tough decisions were made, which ultimately allowed the Soviet Union to defend itself from the fascist threat.
You can count on me. You're going to have a good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And efforts to have subversion, I think it's incoherent to be Stalin bad, but also, yeah, I'm a socialist and I support building the socialist project. Thank you, anonymous gifter, for gifting us up to Mark Hamill's nipples. I'm really saying some controversial shit in this stream so far. This Monster Ultra has really got to me here. They don't give a shit about Armenia. They don't give a shit about Syria. They don't give a shit about Sudan. They really don't care about Eritrea or South Africa. I just don't get what could make Ukraine the main focus of their attention. It's very strange, isn't it? Or this whole, like, of course they have the unequivocal right to defend themselves. They're being invaded. Of course they have the right to take up arms and defend themselves with violence against the invading hordes. But when it comes to Palestine, of course, that's when we have to have nuance. That's when it's a conflict. That's when we need to, both sides need to tone it down, right? And this magic right of self-defense just doesn't seem to apply. It applies to Ukraine because Russia bad, but it doesn't apply to Palestine. It doesn't apply to Syria, or any other country that the United States, and like, again, when the United States invaded Afghanistan or Iraq, if your country was being invaded by the United States and you picked up a stone or a grenade or a rifle or a fucking stick to defend yourself, you got killed or maimed or dragged to Guantanamo, where you were tortured, and for sometimes decades. There's still people in Guantanamo that are being tortured today, 20 years later, who are innocent, who didn't even engage in any kind of violence. And anyway, when people try to draw the link between Israel, Palestine, and Ukraine as well, the people that have the Palestine flag and the Ukraine flag also ignore the fact that, like, who's arming and funding Israel? Western imperialism is doing that, and they're also doing the same thing to Ukraine. So the idea that you can support Palestinians and say, like, oh, I support the right of Ukraine to defend themselves is also kind of preposterous in the first place. Anyway, let's finally get to this Mark Hamill thing. Now that we've spent almost 2 hours setting that up. Yeah, it's not a good haircut that he picked for this one as well. Stalin didn't suck. He fucked. Well, this is the thing. He got the job done. And I think when it comes to Stalin, I think the most important video that we could possibly look at, I think you know what it is. I'll defer to the experts on this.
No, you see knibbel the hoe.
Okay, let's finally look at this tweet from Mark Hamill. It was a pleasure meeting with the brave Ukrainian drone operators. We talked about the challenges they face on a daily basis, but they also wanted to talk about Wookiees and farm boys and droids. Oh my, show your support here. Slava Ukraini, which is, of course, was a fascist slogan now, which has just been totally whitewashed and turned into this like generic kind of anti-Russian thing. And they're right in the corner. And it's the amazing thing about this. Like, so first of all, we know the red and black flag is a symbol of the UPA, who again participated in the Holocaust, killed thousands of Jews and Polish people during the Holocaust. This partisan army, Ukrainian nationalist thing. We can go into like the actual pagan symbol that's been put on that. I think it's a specific like pagan symbol. We can get into that. But it's always funny when people try to like downplay that as well. Well, that's just this benign pagan symbol over this flag of these anti-Soviet nationalists. That's not Nazi. What are you talking about? That's an amazing leap of logic there, mental gymnastics that people do. It's simply a harmless pagan symbol over the flag of these anti-Soviet nationalists. You see, how's that Nazi? As we saw many people in my comment responding. So Mark Hamill shares this video where he's like, yeah, talking Star Wars with the brave Ukrainian drone operators. And this flag is visible in the entire thing.
Я хотів почати з висловлювання вдячності за ваш внесок в очі в небі, який допомагає нам в боротьбі проти імперії в Україні.
We are all like Luke Skywalker.
It's just the Buddhist symbol for peace.
Leia, and Han Solo, the famous Jedi. We are fighting for a better future.
Han Solo was not a Jedi. Did you watch the fucking movie or not?
Well, me even having like Leia vibes now a little bit now.
Well, I think our movie was very relatable because it was basically a fable or a fairy tale for children.
Visible this the entire time.
Like he says, it portrayed someone who didn't have any particular skills. You know, Luke was just a farm boy, but by following his heart and doing the right thing, not for himself, but for all the people, he was able to succeed in a way that he never could have expected.
Also, I have a question. It's a question from my kids, because I have 3 kids, and every kid I'm growing up, we're going from the Star Wars story. And my girls ask me,
Just heartwarming.
What's your favorite film?
Heartwarming content.
Your filmography.
I also have 3 children. 2 of them like Star Wars. My middle son is like, it's not for me. But in terms of Star Wars, I was impressed with Empire Strikes Back because it was deeper and more cerebral. It's not hard to see the parallels between the Ukrainians being the rebels and Russia being the evil empire. It's obvious.
Mark, come on, man. The writer and creator of Star Wars was explicitly clear about who the evil empire was in Star Wars, as we talked about. It was the United States of America. You know, the evil empire in this case, Russia's not an empire. There's one evil empire in the world. There's one hegemonic world power. There's one imperialist global power that controls the global financial system, that has 800 military bases all around the world, that exports its fascist culture everywhere, all throughout the world, that enforces its economic system at gunpoint over all these different colonies, including Ukraine, frankly. That's the United States of America. In this case, the evil empire is arming the people who you were classifying as being the rebel good guys. You know, it's truly amazing how you can be in the movie and not capture the central analogy. And as he's talking about this, again, he's talking to people with proudly displaying a fascist flag of the UPA army, which participated in the Holocaust. And listen, I tried to gently point Mark in the right direction here. You know, I was not trying to be a dick about it. Because I really do think that Mark fully believes this and thinks that he's doing something good and he's supporting something positive. You know, so I tried to acknowledge that. But it's like, Mark, you're talking to people that are displaying a Nazi flag. Like, that's not, if anything, even on a bare minimum level, that should at least maybe cause you to stop and maybe just think about whether this is not quite the black and white good versus evil conflict that you're portraying it as. You know, maybe just stop for a brief moment to think about maybe it's a little bit more complex, a little bit more nuanced than what you're making it out to be. How can you be in a franchise for 40 years and not grasp the underlying allegory? It's pretty depressing. And then this guy. Again, this is a really horrible take, so I don't feel too bad for this dude. But like, this person just got absolutely annihilated for this comment. He said, "There's still Ukrainians fighting Russian invaders. The Nazi ideology can be defeated after the war through dialogue." And he had 203 quote tweets on this. This did not go over well. And this is like, I saw on Twitter, like the screen cap of this, like there was like 3 or 4 different viral posts showing that. There's a worse one from him further down. I don't doubt it. We can find that as well. You know who was good at anti-fascist dialogue? Well, that's right. I mean, like I talked about the analogy between the Confederate States and the American Civil War, and how like the reactionary ideology needs to be fucking eradicated, and the fact that after the Civil War, the American government went easy on the Confederates, and they restored a lot of people they made them whole again, restored people back to their property. And the exact same families, the exact same people are still powerful today. And you still see the wounds of the failed Reconstruction in America today. Like it's still going on to this day because of the fact that they did not come down hard on the Confederates after the war. This idea that like, oh, after we can, through dialogue. No. Like that's not, historically, that has just never happened. And as I pointed out, if this conflict does end, and I hope that it does end soon, and whatever is left of Ukraine after this conflict, it's going to be overrun by these like highly well-trained fascists and extremely well-armed fascists in this like totally kleptocratic state that's been primed for like these horrible Western multinationals to come in and rebuild and make billions of dollars doing so. And all labor protection has been destroyed. All whatever remnants of the Soviet system now is just completely destroyed. It's gone away forever now. And all opposition parties have been banned. No more like anyone resembling a socialist ideology has been completely banned from participating in the media, in political life. That's what Ukraine's going to be after this conflict. And yeah, that's what this nonstop quest to just continue arming and funding these people. That's what it's enabled. You know, it's enabled this exact thing. Sorry, what's the name again? I can't stop laughing saying it. Fuck. Sloppy Dong? Are you still with us, or do you get chased off by that Stalin discourse? It's been a trial by fire for new community member Sloppy Dong Milosevic today. It's been really, we're not easing into the discourse at all. We're really just like diving headlong into all the most controversial shit that we ever talk about. I want Sloppy Dong to stick around though. Okay, that's good. Thank you. I'm glad Sloppy Dong is still with us. It's not always like this, the stream, by the way. Sometimes we just bullshit about like soda and stuff. It's not always like diving into the most controversial subjects like we're doing today. I didn't even hold up the Lacerno book. No, I'm traumatized by that because of that time that I did that and it annihilated my viewership, showing my brand new Lacerno Stalin book. I was so mad. For those of you that are new to the community that weren't around for this, I had just received my book in the mail. This Lacerno
you can count
Stalin
on me.
biography,
You're gonna have good old Rob
the history
to
and
talk
critique
you
of a
through
black
all this.
legend. And
What about the marketplace of friendship?
I was just excited to show it to the chat. There was a brief moment where I was getting a little front page love from Twitch, and all of a sudden was like in the high, in the like 1,000 viewer kind of territory, which was like a huge deal for me. That's important for me. I'm trying to turn this stream into something that's watched by more people, obviously. And so I had like this huge number of viewers. I'm on the Twitch front page, and I'm like, hey, I just got this new book. Look, it's Lacerdo's Stalin, History and Critique of a Black Legend. And the viewers just fell off a cliff. I immediately, some Twitch intern was watching that and just went, oh shit, panic button. And just, and I've never since had that level of viewers. I am looking forward to reading it. I had a list of books that I was trying to read in my TRRS 5-book challenge, and I've read none of them, even though I'm making my way through the 5 books. Now I'm reading on Dispatches again. Anyway, so I mean, we can look at some of the other comments to this. The Nazi ideology can be defeated after the war through dialogue. And a lot of people also point out, like, well, there's Nazis in Russia as well. And, I know part of that is true. I think open fascists have been openly incorporated into the Ukrainian military apparatus in the way that hasn't happened in Russia. We can also point to like Russia and Russian fascism and why that's popular again. Well, why is that? Part of the reason is because the West, NATO, destroyed the Soviet Union. That's part of the reason, as in everywhere in Eastern Europe, fascism has flourished in that post-Soviet period in all these former post-Soviet places, which is another horrific tragedy of the downfall of the Soviet Union in the first place. So I don't think that's a problem, but maybe we need to examine like why that problem is going on in the first place. And also, we're not sending billions of dollars worth of arms and CIA training to Russian fascists. We're doing that to Ukrainian fascists. So you can point out, well, there's Nazis on both sides. Well, I don't think in any circumstance we should be arming and funding Nazis for any reason. That's my big controversial stance. That's my big controversial stance, that we should not be arming and funding these Nazi groups, which we were doing prior to 2020. This didn't just start recently. Like, there's reporting on this. We can look at it. Whenever this comes up, we look at the reporting. There's been reporting on this from like 2015, how Canadian intelligence is training these neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine. This is not a new thing. And in fact, I think even if you don't support the invasion, you might want to acknowledge the fact that NATO arming and funding these neo-Nazi groups, maybe Russia considered that to be a threat to their security. The fact that we were arming and funding these groups to kill Russian-speaking people directly on their border, perhaps that was contributed to the conflict breaking out in the first place and didn't, do anything to stop it. "2014 is when Obama supported the coup that led to this Ukrainian government." Yeah, and again, we had one of those like Dylan Burns people come into the stream the other day and saying like, no, they only started to do that after Russia invaded Crimea. But it's like, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. What happened before Russia took Crimea? That was all happening for a specific reason, Like I was saying, Russia was not just going to sit back and let Crimea now be taken over by like a pro-NATO, pro-EU government and have nukes parked on their border in Crimea, especially, which is home to their most important military base. They were just not going to do that. You're getting the order of events wrong again. That's right. Oh. Really kind of like on one today. The Monster Energy thing is really getting me, plus the cold medication. So a lot of Ukraine flags here. Do you have brain damage? What is that, a Scott Pilgrim thing? And again, what did I say? The guys you're talking to have a Nazi flag. That's my statement, which is just unequivocally, inarguably true. I'm just stating a basic fact, which is that red and black flag with the pagan symbol on it is a Nazi flag. The people that flew that flag in World War II and the post-war period, the red and black UPA flag, participated in the Holocaust. They killed thousands of Jewish and Polish people. during the Holocaust. That's just the basic historical reality of what happened. So people are arguing that with the ad idea, it's not Nazi flag, but it very clearly and obviously is. Russian soldiers cut off the head of a Ukrainian POW. And again, I've heard that before as well, which is horrible and a war crime, if true. The only problem with the people that are pointing this out, the whole like they decapitated a Russian POW, if true, absolutely a war crime and a terrible, horrible thing. There's been numerous videos of Russian POWs being assaulted, murdered, attacked as well, which these people celebrate. They celebrate that and think it's okay. So if you're against POWs being horrifically murdered like that, okay, I agree with that. But this has literally been celebrated. There's been numerous examples of this, of Russian POWs being murdered and tortured, which these people, they think it's wonderful. They think it's great. Yeah, or the videos of the people that refuse to fight being taped to poles and shit. Yeah, exactly. Or like in places that have been under Russian control and then retaken, anyone who's accused of like collaborating with the Russians, anyone that's had anything other than like total full support.
This is some guy, Rob
Ukrainian
Russo, some
nationalism,
leftist based in Canada. I was
assaulted,
turned on to this
shot,
sick
murdered,
individual, and I found this.
Who is that? Doc, thank you for the raid. Hello, Doc. It's the resident TRRS medical doctor, Doc Hollywood. Thank you for the raid. Thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. The use of the working class to fight an oligarch's war should be opposed. Yeah, and I agree with that. Sloppy dong. And like, there's been some really terrible footage as well of like Ukrainians who are being like forced into becoming forced conscripts into this war. It's horrifying. People being like dragged into vans and stuff, being brought to the front lines, had a rifle put in their hands, get 2 days of training or whatever, and then just being thrown in the fucking meat grinder on the front lines. It's fucking horrendous. You know, it's awful. It is absolutely awful. What other... This may shock you. Colors and shapes are not the same thing. Those are not Nazi flags. Sheesh. I mean, it very clearly is, as we've talked about. You're the chosen one. That's good. We got these. Yeah, sure, Ivan. And again, wearing a Soviet hat. I mean, if I would be a lot more supportive of this if it actually was if it was the Soviet Union still existed, but it does not, unfortunately. Glorious war, as long as I don't have to go. And I mean, I think that's been, a really disgraceful thing, seeing people from the West who are not involved with this, who don't have to live under the horrors of war, taking this position that like any dialogue, any diplomacy, any discourse, any sympathy whatsoever with Russian position is off the table, not allowed. The only thing we can ever support, if you support Ukraine, is endless arms transfers and just perpetuating the conflict endlessly, which is a miserable situation for anyone that has to actually be involved in it. And you have people in fucking Canada and the United States who have nothing to do with it, being like, no, I would rather every Ukrainian die than these eastern regions, these villages that I just heard about like last week are to fall into the Russian hands. No, I say no. Like this random person that lives in like Mississauga, Ontario or whatever. Like it's fucking extremely gross. Someone's sending me something about Putin's secret neo-Nazi armies, and I've talked about the conversation with Russian neo-Nazis and that kind of stuff. And Eco Erica, of course. And I wonder how many of these people are actually real people as well. Why writing such misinformation? This is simply a kolovrat, a Slavic symbol of the sun. That's all. It's just a Slavic symbol on the top of this flag of these Ukrainian nationalist people who participated in the Holocaust. Not Nazi. What are you talking about? I mean, you keep going back to this, sloppy dong, so I'm not sure we're going to come to an agreement on this. You keep saying it was Russia's choice to invade. And again, there's an element of truth to that. But as I pointed out before, it's like it's been the geopolitical strategy of the kids in the back seat being like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. For decades and decades and decades. Yeah, Russia ultimately it's on them who made the choice to do the invasion, but like, fuck, we can't ignore the role that the West has played in deliberately provoking that situation. And again, we've seen part of it is because, like, you know, we've seen how America wants to get Western Europe off of this cheap Russian gas supply to sell them fracked gas from the United States. I mean, this is part of it as well. There's economic interests that are at play that have contributed to the West's provocation of this thing. You know? I just think that's too simplistic of a way to look at this. It's way too black and white. You know? You don't have to support the invasion or support war to just recognize the idea that, like, Russia viewed the previous few decades of the West's actions in this region as a threat to their security. And there was many, many chances to avoid this outcome. And for saying for years, stop doing this or there's going to be consequences. Stop doing this or there's going to be consequences. Eventually, like, there got to a point where it was like a put up or shut up moment, you know? And I think just saying like, well, they made the choice to invade, I think that's way too simplistic of a way to look at it. In the 10 days before Russia invaded Ukraine, significantly increased their shelling of Donbass. I mean, even, again, with the Minsk agreements, when they agreed, they had like an agreement on the table to stop, that could have stopped the conflict. And they refused. The Kiev government, with NATO obviously whispering in their ear like Grima Wormtongue, if you want to use the fiction, the pop culture fiction analogy, didn't let them abide by it. You know, there was a peace deal on the table. It was broken by the Kiev government at the behest of their NATO overlords. Okay? It's not a Nazi. This is amazing. Amazing. It's not a Nazi flag. That isn't associated with Nazis there, but the UPA, independence and Slavic neo-paganism. Is that so? Is that so? It's not Nazi. It's the UPA, national Ukrainian nationalism and Slavic neo-paganism. Not Nazi, though. Like, do these people fucking hear themselves? It's unbelievable to me. You know, it's truly amazing. The mental gymnastics. Proxy war, Nazi in Ukraine, the Ukraine, full package. Paid by Perusia since 2022, as I can see. Fucking, believe me, I am not being paid by anyone to espouse this viewpoint. You can say what you want about me, but these views that I have are sincerely held and have come to me by paying attention to this conflict for years now, and also being against Western imperialism, who provoked this conflict. So they got all the screenshots. And I stand by all these. I stand by every single one of these comments, by the way, that all these people are like pointing out. Like this from whenever this was, July 22. The arms have been going into Ukraine for the last 10 years. Plenty of Western reporting has been done to substantiate this, as well as U.S. politicians like John McCain and Lindsey Graham openly talking about it. Like, that's just That's just the factual statement. What is wrong about that? What is propaganda about that? That's literally just saying something that is true. NATO arms have been being pumped into Ukraine for at least the last 10 years. That's just true. I'm sorry. You know, what am I supposed to do? I know some people have preferred to just stick their heads in the sand and ignore that this ever happened, but that would not be that's not an honest assessment of what has been going on here. That's true. NATO arms have been getting pumped into Ukraine for the last 10 years. These militias have been trained by the CIA and Canadian intelligence. Not inarguable. This is inarguable. It is 100% true. Whether you like it or not. I mean, you don't have to like it, but that's the truth. Well, and one thing I'll say, sloppy dong as well. I don't have the answer, but invading is not it. Russia and China's ongoing relations with Africa and South America is the answer. Like, I think you can make that case as well, that the invasion, not only has it been horrific, regardless of whatever like high-minded principles you want to attach onto it or to talk about the way that it was provoked, it's also, in many ways, it's strengthened NATO. And in many ways, it's strengthened this Ukrainian nationalist movement, you know, which is a big problem. So that's something that I would agree with. But again, none of this stuff that this person's like pointing out as like a gotcha here is inaccurate. It's just a coincidence that the same countries that arm and fund Israel also arm and fund Ukraine. This is true. If our media is interested in, like, these are all good tweets. These are all good tweets. I'm sorry. If our media is interested at all in dispelling the myth that Ukraine is overrun by neo-Nazis, they should probably stop continually platforming and uplifting Ukrainian neo-Nazis in their coverage of this conflict, which I posted multiple examples of. Like, this is all, that's a very true phenomenon. You know, every single time we hear from one of these like Ukrainian military guys, or you have propaganda or images coming back from the war, every single fucking time, not like a large percentage of the time or like half of the time, every single time you see one of these fascist symbols in this reporting, or you see a guy with a Bandera picture behind him, every fucking time. That's true. Like, I stand by every single one of these tweets that this person is pointing out is being like a Russian propaganda. Elena, who's like a bot. I will link them here in case you can't see them that well in the actual stream. I stand by each and every one of these tweets. And this is what I keep coming back to as well, DRP 50. Russia tried solving the problem with diplomacy. The West reneged on the deal. I mean, this is the thing. It's like they didn't just invade right away. They waited a long time. And as we saw, I remember when they, like right before the invasion happened, when Russia recognized these Eastern republics as being independent, we watched footage from RT of people that live in these places. And like what they were saying was like, where have you been this whole time? They were like mad at Putin for not doing it sooner. They were like, where have you been? We've been getting bombed and shelled for the last 10 years. Why just now are you doing this? You know? And the Minsk agreements again as well, which again, Merkel herself admitted that was never taken seriously at all, and was always just an effort to bide time to pump even more arms into Ukraine. That's why they never had any intention of following through on those peace deals that Russia was negotiating with them. Anyway, I stand by every single one of these tweets. Can you point to where he's wrong exactly? Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Vault Dweller, for that. I stand by every single one of those. But Russian Nazis, that's a lot of them as well. It's a lot of the comments as well. Please elaborate. What flag do they have as a Nazi flag? Just fucking like the head in the sand bullshit. That's not a Nazi flag. The black and red background just denotes a regiment with the Ukrainian insurgent army. This symbol is not a swastika, and I guarantee predates the Nazis by hundreds of years, just as the swastika is a harmless Buddhist symbol of Buddhism as well. And then he puts the flag of the Ukrainian insurgent army. Well, what happens when you click on this Ukrainian insurgent army here? Well, what do we look about that? I believe there's a section in this very Wikipedia article. Poland, massacres of Poles in Volhynia and Eastern Galicia. This is in the helpful Wikipedia article, so someone could show me how non-Nazi this flag is. There's literally a section in the Wikipedia article about the UPA adopted a policy of massacring and expelling the Polish population. The decision of ethnic cleansing of the area east of the Bug River was taken by the Ukrainian insurgent army in 1943. In March, the OUNB imposed a collective death sentence on all Poles living in the former east of the Second Polish Republic. A few months later, local units of the UPA were instructed to complete the operation soon. The ethnic cleansing operation against the Poles began on a large scale in Volhynia in late February of that year and lasted until the end of 1944. In total, the estimated numbers of Polish and Jewish civilians killed in Volhynia and Galicia is between 50,000 and 100,000. This is in the Wikipedia article that someone linked to me to prove that this was not a Nazi flag. No, and that's always the way it goes, right? They're not Nazis. They're simply Nazi collaborators who are anti-Soviet nationalists. You know? It's just a harmless pagan symbol on top of the flag of this anti-Soviet nationalist group that helped carry out the Holocaust. That's not Nazi, you see. People say this to me just with a zero cognitive dissonance, I guess. Like, it's pretty incredible stuff. Yeah, the Nazis actually killed a lot of them, so there we go. Oh. You know, I think I just need to take a brief moment, folks. I need to take a brief moment to blow my nose. I've been talking for really 2 hours straight here. And I want to get into my conversation that I had with CBC's Evan Dyer, or whatever his name is, who I actually I got in a beef with a few months ago as well, talking about the defending the Soviet legacy as I often do. I'm just going to briefly blow my nose, take a small break from talking. I would just like to remind everyone, though, that if you do enjoy this content, and if you think this kind of discourse is maybe different than what you see elsewhere on Twitch or elsewhere in our media apparatus, I would encourage you to please subscribe to TRRS. Subscribe to TRRS. It's Twitch's only triangle-shaped, two-dimensional trickle-down clout and friendship access tiered reward system. And if you enjoy this kind of commentary, even if you don't disagree with it, even if you don't totally agree with it, rather, if you think it's important to have this kind of dialogue on this platform, the only way that this show is able to continue on twitch.tv is through the generosity of the wonderful community members. So please subscribe to TRRS. It's $5 per month or completely free of charge if you have an Amazon Prime account. You can also gift subscriptions to rocket your way up into the elite tier of the Friendship Triangle system. There's other ways to support as well. But if you enjoy this program, I do encourage people to subscribe to TRRS and help support the content and the work that I do here and help keep it on the air. Yeah, I would sloppy dong. I would recommend joining the Discord as well, and that goes for anyone that's tuning in for the first time, or is more of a lurker, or doesn't participate as much. Please join the Discord server as well. I really do think that it's the best community, the best Discord server that there is, as well as being the best Twitch community that's available on this platform. But again, the only way that this is able to continue this kind of discourse and commentary is through the generosity of our wonderful community members. I do not recommend sharing classified military documents on there. Yeah, as we've seen, there's all these kinds of snitches in the media establishment that are working on ensuring that there's severe consequences for that. So I'll just wait for the flood of subs to come in. I'm sure there's just like a little bit of a holdup as the tubes get clogged with all the subs. Surely someone's going to bail me out of doing this whole pitch.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to
not
talk you
embarrassing
through all
myself.
this.
Thank you, MindFad.
TRRS Sankara.
Thank you, MindFad, for the 6 months of Tier 1.
You've just become an
my
elite
goodness.
member of the Friendship Triangle.
Alt-Tab Dad, thank you very much for the 5 gifted subs. First 5 gifted subs in the channel from Alt-Tab Dad immediately rockets right up to the elite tier
You
of
can
the
count on me.
Friendship
You're
Triangle
going to have good old
system.
Rob to talk you through all this.
And thank you, Diego, aka Comrade Social Distancing, as well.
You can count on
for
me.
the 2
You're going to have
gifted
good old
subs.
Rob to talk
Thank
you through all
Diego.
this.
Thank you, Sage Young Simp, as well, for the 4 months of Tier 1. And thank you, Lux
You can count on me.
Manifestus,
You're going to have good old Rob
as
to
well.
talk you through all this.
for the 2 months of Tier 1. Thank you for that. That's more like it. Thank you, folks. I really appreciate all the support. I really, really do. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate the fact that I'm able to earn a small living from going on and having these conversations. Again, I don't want to overstate my own importance.
You're going to have
here.
good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I don't want to overstate my own importance. I do think it's important to have this like community.
You can count on
and
me.
have this
You're
kind
going to
of
have good old Rob to
alternate
talk you through
viewpoint
all
of these
this.
events. Taking up space on Twitch, which is a pretty toxic platform full
We
of
simply
a lot of
use the computer to
really
mark up
dog shit
the
analysis.
size of the account.
Weed number.
Catalepsy Kills says, no more subbing. I'm broken. Don't want to lose SSI, but I appreciate your content. It's a relief to hear someone get
You can
clear
count
with
on
position.
me. You're going to have
And
good
Catalepsy,
old
of
Rob
course,
to
no
talk you
problem.
through all this.
Of course, if it's an issue for anyone that's having financial issues, please buy food more than subs to this show. Please, believe me, I'm not going to take it personally. But I appreciate your comment, and thank you, Brian, aka Lennon Smesh, another very good streamer. Thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you, Kijiji Genie, for the gifted sub to Midwest Manitoba. Thank you, Why So Dankness, for the 420 friend coin. That's the weed number. It's the weed number. Oh my goodness. And thank you to Sage Young Simp as well for the gifted sub to Catalepsy Kills. Thank you. So we do have a hype train going here. I am going to take a little break after this segment to just like stop talking for a few minutes, but we're going to continue on this subject. We're going to continue talking about Ukraine and our media discourse, and we're going to get into the Lula's comments on this, which is what started my conversation with our friend Sloppy Dong Milosevic as well. I was thinking about making some noodles, but I don't know. I don't know if I have time. Get some water to balance out the monster.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I'm pretty high energy. I'm fairly high energy. I felt terrible all weekend, and I'm still very tired, but I've got enough caffeine today that I think I had 2 straight hours of like nonstop talking there. Thank you, Matt, aka Unelectable Airwaves, another very good streamer. I really appreciate the support, Matt, as well. Thank you for the 19 months Tier 1. Thank you. So we're very close to
We simply
getting through level 3.
use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Thank you to our friend Human Person for the 100 friend coin. Very close to getting through level 3 of this hype train. So remember, not only if you do subscribe to this channel, do you get the wonderful emotes, some of the very best emotes that you can get on this entire platform, but if you contribute right now during this hype train, you can also get special hype train emotes as well. That's fun, isn't it? And we're 97% of the way through level 3 of this hype train. One more generous chatter could get to level 4. Imagine if we got to level 4, how exciting that would be. Oh my goodness. I'm getting chills just thinking about how exciting that would be. How lucky it would be to be the person that pushed us over the edge and got us to level 4 of this hype train. Twitch is so weird how I transition from talking about this important shit to like doing this pandering. You know, I have to do it though. I know the viewers understand, but sometimes I have these out-of-body experiences where I was just talking about like the Holocaust.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
I was just talking about the Holocaust, and now I'm talking about like the Twitch's only two-dimensional triangle-shaped and friendship access.
We simply
trickle-down
use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Everyone I know has some kind of sinus snot bullshit. The fun time of year where you wonder if it's allergies, cold, or COVID. Yeah, it's been really shitty. I don't think I have COVID, just because when I did have COVID, it was a very different experience. I just think I have like a sinus infection or a cold, but definitely a miserable time of year. Why So Dankness? Thank you for the 187 friend coin. Thank you, Why So Dankness. Thank you to Alt Tab Dad as well for the 123 friend coin. I really appreciate the support, Alt Tab Dad. The only top secret info I can share is Pete Buttigieg's middle name is Paul, aka Mayor PP Butt. That's absolutely devastating. Absolutely devastating. Should I run the ad? I mean, I guess so. I guess I should. I mean, it's just, if you're new to the community, I guess you can maybe kind of get a kick out of it anyways. Might as well. If you're still on the fence, if after this whole last 5 minutes of me pitching you on this, if you're still on the fence, I did create this little onboarding orientation video for you to describe what the community is about. So if you're still on the fence about subscribing, here's this. You can watch this video as well. I tried to play your most recent podcast for a work friend, and you're so nasally inclined. They thought you sounded like Trump. I think that's just because I was sick, though. I don't think I sound nasal normally, Crackle Bear, but I'm sick. Jesus. Tell your friend I said, come on, man. Please. Come on. Anyway, here's the onboarding orientation video. If you're still on the fence about this, I hope this will convince you that you should subscribe to this platform, this content, and join this community.
Thank you for expressing interest in the Friendship Triangle community. We would be thrilled to have you on board as a member of our exclusive platform. As you may know, the Friendship Triangle is Twitch's only two-dimensional, triangle-shaped, friendship access and trickle-down cloud tiered reward system. Today you have an amazing opportunity to join the base level of the Friendship Triangle system. Once you are part of the community, you'll have the ability to rise through the ranks and achieve higher levels of access and rewards. One way to do this is by gifting subscriptions to your fellow members or by inviting your friends and family members to join our community. As you ascend the tiers, you will be exposed to a range of new and exciting benefits, such as exclusive content, advanced features, and access to our elite community members. We are confident that you will enjoy all the perks that come with being part of the Friendship Triangle. However, we also want to remind you that not all friends and family members are to be trusted, especially those who may not support your new lifestyle.
This is important.
That's why we encourage you to focus on building meaningful relationships within our community, where you will find like-minded individuals who share your interests and values. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We are always here to support our members and ensure that your experience with the Friendship Triangle is enjoyable. We're glad that you are considering joining the Friendship Triangle community. We look forward to seeing you rise through the Chaos Zone and all the way into the elite tier. It's not a cult.
There we go. So if anyone's had any concerns about that, hopefully that's addressed in there. So again, if you can, folks, please subscribe to TRRS. I promise we're going to move on to talking about important discourse soon. I will move on from this segment. Yeah, as you know, I don't always enjoy doing this whole like routine every single day. It's what I have to do in order to like make this actually worthwhile to do. So I hope you understand. I will be transitioning back into talking about important discourse and geopolitical affairs soon. It's not a cult. That's right. It's made very clear. So please, if you can, we got another 30 seconds in this hype train. If you can, please support the show, support the community. 2 generous chatters could get us could not only become elite tier members of the Friendship Triangle system, but could also get us up to the sub goal. 2 generous chatters could do it. Doesn't that sound like something that, doesn't it sound fun? Doesn't that sound like you would like to do? Okay. Did you just hit 5K likes, Marty? Seriously? Let me look at this here. Jesus. Okay, so talking about this like clout trickles down thing, because this is clearly taken on a life of its own. And again, Marty, it was a good tweet. I don't want to take anything away from your tweet, okay? It was good.
Lights off. Off! Turn them off. They're too bright. Turn them off.
This morning when I retweeted this, it had 120 likes. This is what the trickle down clout system is all about, okay? It's not just a catchphrase. It's not just a gimmick. The system works. Marty can attest to this. So this must have caught some other big retweets. These must have got some key retweets here. It's taken on a life of its own. I think from that jump, in my experience, Marty, I think you might be looking at over 10K here, at least. I think you might be looking at a 10K-er. Yeah, Lennon Smash, aka Brian, was just tweeting for his cat before this. The system works, folks. I'm telling you, it's not just a gimmick. Okay? It's not a gimmick. Anyway. I'm just going to take a brief break. I'm going to go blow my nose. I think I'm going to throw some noodles in the pot as well. So just don't go anywhere, okay? I'm going to be right back. We'll do some more important discourse. Give me 5 minutes. I'm going to go blow my nose, get a beverage, put some noodles in the pot. And then I will be back. We'll talk more and have more important dialogue and discourse, okay? Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Don't leave. You're not allowed to leave. Don't leave. Two, hello. Check. I'm back. I'm just gonna have my little snack. You'll bear with me here. I'm gonna have my little snack. I didn't make noodles. I just got some bread and it's a artichoke and Asiago, a dip with some olives. That's my little snack. And like, I just had a bit of a coughing fit while I took a break there. So I don't think I'm going to talk that much more. I'm going to get into my little thing with Evan Dyer and maybe go over that for the next like 15, 20 minutes. But then I think I'm just going to either just throw on a video or something after that. It's tasty. It's very tasty, Johnny. Are you invested in hockey or basketball playoffs? I did my commentary about hockey and basketball playoffs at the beginning of the stream. In short, I'm a Toronto Raptors fan. So I'm going to passively enjoy the NBA playoffs because I love hoops. I'm going to be I'm becoming a Sacramento Kings guy for a couple weeks. I'm going to be a Kings guy. Light the beam. Great. That was a fantastic game this weekend. Watch this animation. Just the channel is Pics and Portraits. They do these series of videos, retrofuturism, the future that never came. I always just think I created all the music for this stream, and these are just a series of videos that is just very, very easy to. I just throw on the video and put on some of this music that I made, and it just kind of like works. It just syncs up nicely. Boy, does it work. Just bear with me a few more moments here. Olives. Tremendous. Oh. Are you East Coast Canada? No, I'm in Montreal, Quebec. So it's not exactly East Coast, but I guess technically that might qualify as East Coast. It's definitely kind of an East Coast mentality. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to oh, nice timing with the music there. I'm going to take just like another probably 15 minutes or so just to talk about this. I think most of what I wanted to say. Oh,
you can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I thought there'd be better people on here. Wow. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Don Darkzoni, for the gifted sub. Oh, because you guys suck on COVID. Okay. Well, thanks for stopping by. Whatever. Like I said, I'm going to talk for another 15 or 20 minutes about this. I think everything that I kind of wanted to say about Ukraine and all this stuff, I have already said. So I can just get into this brief interaction with Evan Dyer, just to maybe talk a little bit about the role that our media plays in this, and to also talk a little bit about Lula and Lula's comments. Because I think the Lula's comments about this have been really revealing as well. And you have this whole segment of the Western left, I think, who are like, yeah, of course I love Lula. You know, Lula's great. Lula, beats Bolsonaro, and I'm happy about this. But then when Lula talks about Ukraine, and when he goes to visit China and presents this concept of Ukraine, which I think is a representation of what like most of the world believes, that this is a conflict that has two sides. It's not just good versus evil. It's not just Russia invading Ukraine. That NATO has played a role in provoking it and prolonging it. I think that's what most of the world believes. Not the like rules-based international order, the West, the former colonial countries. None of that they don't obviously agree, but most of the rest of the world agrees with this, who are like either neutral on Ukraine or openly support Russia. Like you look at what the ANC says in South Africa about this, like the ANC youth wing, and they're like very pro-Putin. So this is what most of the rest of the world believes. But I think it's amazing how a lot of these people who are like Western leftists that love Lula, when Lula articulates this viewpoint, they're like, no, he's wrong. He's wrong about this. Which I think is kind of like arrogant and chauvinistic. It's one thing being like, if there's Russian, what the things that they say is all propaganda. But when like people in the global South, political figures like Lula articulate this idea and who are neutral on Ukraine and Russia and who do articulate this idea about the role NATO has played, and people in the West, Western leftists who have never organized anything in their lives, who have never accomplished anything, feel comfortable being like, no, you're wrong, sir. I know more about this. You're wrong. That I think is an arrogant and chauvinistic stance. And I think there's kind of a cognitive dissonance as well. Yeah, it's not me. It's the entire global South that's out of touch on this. And I think it's a cognitive dissonance as well, is where people like have become so adamant that this pro-NATO, pro-Western viewpoint on this is correct. And when someone like LULA comes around and articulates that different viewpoint, that more neutral viewpoint that, again, most of the world subscribes to, rather than taking a moment to say like, why is this person that I respect saying these things? Why does the global South, as you look at the way the different countries, the way that they voted on this and the way that they talked about it, why do they have this viewpoint? Maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's more to it than what I'm letting on. Maybe I've been misled. Maybe I've become a victim of propaganda myself. Maybe I need to rethink this. Rather than taking this approach, these folks are instead like, no, they're wrong. No, Lula's wrong about this. No, the global South is wrong. The global South is just doing
You're going to have good
Kremlin
old Rob
propaganda.
to talk you through all this.
Dummy Dorko, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Thank you, Dummy Dorko. I appreciate that. So again, I think that's something that's a big blind spot that people have, where they're just like, they've become so entrenched in this viewpoint about Ukraine that they refuse to re-examine it or just accept the basic idea that maybe they might have gotten this one wrong. And they're going to say like, oh, no, Lula's wrong about this. The global South is wrong. Russia's just influencing all these countries. That's right. Russia's just forcing these countries by giving them cheap Russian gas to support them or something like that, whatever it is. Again, a lot of the Soviet Union's gone, but I think a lot of these places, when you talk about Africa especially, which the United States has tried to like come down hard on and say, you need to support us on this. And most African countries are like, no, we're not going to support them. And yeah, the Soviet Union is gone, but people in Africa remember which countries have been like colonizing them and committing genocide in their nations for centuries. It hasn't been Russia. And in fact, the Soviet Union, during these struggles, was often supporting the anti-colonial movements that were trying to fight back against the Dutch and the British and the Portuguese and all the other colonialist countries and the French as well. The Soviet Union was supporting all these anti-colonial struggles. And these places remember this. I feel like there's a split in the global left regarding Russia, China, and the global South. Sorry, the woke police are coming to arrest me. Excuse me. And that's always been kind of the way that I look at things, sloppy dong. Fuck, I'm not going to be able to say that without laughing. That map, the map of that you see time and time again, whether it's like support for Israel or the recognition of indigenous peoples or any number of these other things, you see the map that's divided between the West, the former colonialist countries, the rules-based international order, and then there's everyone else. Support for China's policies in Xinjiang is also another example of this map. I always just try to tell myself on any of these given political issues, maybe it's not a 100% perfect way of analyzing these things, but I always tell myself, if you find yourself on the side of the United States and Canada and Western Europe and Australia, it's probably, no matter what the subject is, it's probably a sign that you need to at least take a second look at some of these things and maybe re-examine how you've come to hold these beliefs. If you find yourself on the side of the rules-based international order or on any of these subjects, it's usually a good sign that you need to re-examine some of these things. And the fact that the global South has been extremely clear generally during this conflict about being neutral on Russia and Ukraine, that's how I've taken my kind of cues from. I kind of try to take my cues from where the global South comes down on these things, because the people in the global South know what NATO is about. They know what Western imperialism is about. They know, they're familiar with these proxy wars, the fact that NATO and Western countries have been supporting and promoting extremists around the world for decades and centuries, really, in order to destabilize countries that they don't like. Like, people in the global south are familiar with this strategy. So they don't buy this bullshit about, like, we need to defeat the evil Russians and protect the principled democracy of Ukraine. They know that people in the global south that have experience with that know that that's bullshit. So I try to keep that in mind. And this is a whole separate conversation that we often talk about on this show. I'm not a dengist, but I went to Vietnam with my Vietnamese American GF, and she showed me a lot. Trotsky was an asshole because he was right about countries not being able to be socialist in a capitalist world. I think Deng is, a good example of this. I don't want to get on a tangent about this because we talk about this all the time, and there's going to be more opportunities to get into this conversation. I don't think the Communist Party would still be in charge of China to this day were it not for Deng's economic reforms, which you don't have to agree with. I don't think China would be in the position that it's in to this day, where it's able to, like, have things like the Belt and Road Initiative, providing an alternative for other countries in the global south to develop. I don't think it would have the kind of productive forces possible to build all this massive infrastructure, the high-speed rail, etc. I don't think any of that's possible without Deng. And people might say, like, well, it's a state. They embrace these markets. They embrace capitalism. Well, the question is, like, how do you build socialism in this capitalist world, as you talked about? How do you build socialism right under the nose of the imperialist powers that are ready to destabilize you and overthrow you at any time? How do you do that without getting these countries, like America, to believe that you're on board? You're on board with this global neoliberal project, you know? A lot of the propaganda of the last couple of years has been these Western countries realizing too late that China is not actually on board with their global system and have been using capitalism over the last couple of decades in order to continue to build their socialist project. They had to build power somehow. This is my point. How do you do that? How do you do that when you've got the world's foremost imperialist power breathing down your neck the entire time? That, to me, is smart. And there's plenty you can criticize about the Deng period. Obviously, there was exploitation involved. There were some disastrous, terrible foreign policy decisions at that time. That's actually something that I wanted to mention because we've been talking about Tibet a lot, and I've been defending China's actions in Tibet. It doesn't mean that I think everything's perfect in China or that they have a spotless record when it comes to these things. Several terrible, inexplicable decisions were made during that time. That is indefensible, and I would agree with that. Let's put a pin in that, though, okay? That's a whole separate conversation that we talk about often on this show. And there will be plenty more times to talk about Dengism and the role of capitalism in China and building productive forces and all that. I mean, even in State and Revolution, right? It's right there in the transition from capitalism to socialism to communism. Like Lenin himself talks about the role that capitalism and markets can play in that transition. It's a long period. It's not just a process of instantly in one night smashing the socialism button and instantly transforming your entire economy and society. You're this formerly colonized, incredibly impoverished, incredibly illiterate country. How do you build socialism in that context with those material conditions? Well, I think if you look back on the last couple of decades of China and their advancement, I think a lot of these decisions kind of make a lot of sense. Let's put a pin in that for now, and let's talk about I'm pro-Vietnam. Vietnamese commies hate Chinese commies, so consider me officially biased. But isn't that kind of changing? Like, they are kind of restoring more diplomatic ties, like with Vietnam and China. Like, I think they have a lot more friendly relations now than they did in the past. Like I said, China invaded Vietnam, which is a disastrous and I think indefensible foreign policy decision in that period. Like, they supported Pol Pot, which is like horrendous. I would agree with that. I do think that dynamic is kind of changing, though, from my understanding anyways. Again, we're going to put a pin in that. Let's talk about this conversation with Evan Dyer, and I have to stop talking. It's like I'm talking way too much. I'm still sick, and I feel like shit, so... Let's get into this. We'll briefly talk about this. And then I'll throw in some kind of video or something. Or maybe even call the end of the stream. I guess it's coming close to 3 hours, so I guess I could just save the rest of that shit for tomorrow. I think this is a good way of looking at it, Old Dutch. Deng may not have had in mind what she is now spearheading, but you can't deny that his policies made it possible. That's kind of my stance. I don't like you can't look at what China's doing on the global stage right now, how they've advanced as a society, how they're working to eliminate extreme poverty, how they're playing this larger role. Their economy is close to surpassing the United States. They're the next global superpower. None of that is possible without Deng Xiaoping. So here's the thing about Lula, and here's Evan Dyer from the CBC. So what are the comments? What are Lula's comments here? Lula says, this is the translation, returns to comment on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. War decision was taken by 2 countries. So let's look at his comments here, and we can see how Evan Dyer, professional journalist who is supposed to be unbiased and not editorialize these things, takes these comments, which I think are totally in line with his stance on this and in the stance of like most of the global South, and then editorializes and gives it this meaning himself. This is what professional, objective journalists in Canada like to do. Yeah, yet another Nepo baby in Canadian media. The war started by decision made by 2 countries. This is the important point.
What are we trying to build now? We're trying to form a group of countries that has no kind whatsoever involvement with the war, that do not want the war to continue.
I want to catch this as well. That has no kind soever involvement with the war, that don't want the war to continue. They want to build up peace in the world. We can talk with both Russia and Ukraine. We also have to consider that it's necessary to talk with the USA and the European Union. We need to convince people that peace is the best way. That is pretty uncontroversial, to establish a process of conversations. The way things are, peace is very difficult to be reached, which is true, and we continue provoking that. We continue prolonging this with these endless arms transfers and rejecting every possibility of diplomacy. Putin doesn't take any initiative to stop. Zelensky doesn't take any initiative to stop. Europe and the US end up contributing to continue the war. This should be uncontroversial.
Europe and the US continue to give their way of contribution to continue the war. So we have to sit around the table and say that's...
Sorry, I can only barely hear it because it's coming out of my headphones on the table, so I didn't realize I was reading it while someone else was also translating it. Will not and will never bring any benefit to humanity, which I think should be something that we all agree with. We all agree with that. The translator is inaudible. Okay, well that's good. So then Evan Dyer, here's what he says. Again, objective journalist Evan Dyer, Lula in China falsely claims, he says, the decision to start the Ukraine war was made by 2 countries. And this is editorializing. You'll notice that this is not what Lula said. And when he's talking about 2 countries, he's talking about also America, right? Suggesting Ukraine asked to be invaded, which he did not say. That's Evan Dyer, professional journalist, That's his editorialized version of the comments. He also blamed the US and EU for prolonging the conflict by helping Ukraine defend itself, which is just inarguably objectively true. The fact that we've prolonged the conflict by dumping billions of dollars worth of arms into the country, of course it has. That's just objectively true. And this is my basic point. I mean, I think I've already talked about all of these things, which is, and this was a very satisfying ratio as well. I must admit that I absolutely annihilated Evan Dyer in the marketplace of ideas here. And just pointing out that this is what the vast majority of the non-Western world believes. And maybe you should consider whether it's actually you who are wrong about this. And I think that's all. I think that's all I wanted to point out. The idea that, like, I think if we respect Lula, we should listen to what he has to say and not immediately accuse him of doing like Russian propaganda. And yeah, the idea that, first of all, he's saying Ukraine has to be invaded. That's not at all what Lula said in those comments. But talked about that both sides have played a role in the conflict escalating. Because, right, the invasion didn't start. The war didn't start in February of 2022. It didn't. It's been going on for 10 years. And the Kiev, even if you're talking about the decision was made between two countries, the Kiev government has been bombing and shelling this Donbass region for the last 10 years using NATO weapons and training. The Kiev government went along with, like, participated in those Minsk agreements and then didn't abide by them. You know, they've played a role. And again, I blame NATO for this more than the actual Ukrainian government, because I don't think they have much choice in the matter. Zelensky famously was elected on a platform of like peace, of like, let's stop this whole conflict. That's why he won an election in like a landslide, because a lot of people were like, we don't want to have a civil war in our country. This guy's saying he's going to put a stop to it, so we should vote for him. I don't think the Ukrainian government, the Kiev government, has much choice in the matter, because you've got NATO and the CIA the entire time saying like, no, we're going to continue arming and funding these militias that are engaged in this proxy war in the eastern regions. So I don't think anything that Lula is saying is controversial in any way. And Evan Dyer is like, if someone amazing, there's this amazing conversation right now about CBC and state media, but Evan Dyer's like in this moment as a nepotism baby as well, is perfectly outlining exactly how it is state media, because it's articulating the view of the state in this non-biased non-editorialized journalism, quote unquote journalism. You know, where he's saying these things, talking about the role that the Kiev government or that NATO or the US or Canada have played in prolonging the conflict, and he just says he's falsely claiming that, and then attributing basically a quote to him that he didn't actually say. My whole point, as I've articulated throughout this episode, as I've articulated throughout the last year and a half, is that it's not as simple as Russia just one day deciding to invade another country just because they wanted to be mean. It's not Star Wars. It's not a battle between good and evil. The Kiev government, along with NATO, Canada, and the US, have played a role in provoking this and escalating and fanning the flames of this conflict. There was many off-ramps to stop it before it started. There was multiple rounds of Minsk agreements. There's many opportunities to stop this from happening. And the Kiev government, with their NATO masters, pulling the strings, have pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed up to those red lines that Russia has repeatedly said, we consider this a threat to us. We consider this a threat to our security. And they've repeatedly pushed up to those lines, and which leads to the conflict happening in the first place. And I don't think that absolves Russia of guilt for any horrible things that have happened over the last year and a half. But I don't think it's a serious actual analysis of the situation to say that this is a one-sided thing. It's entirely Russia's fault. It's entirely unprovoked. I don't believe that. That's been my position for the last year and a half. That's what I'm going to continue to articulate here on this program. And I stand by that. Again, as people have pointed out all this Russian propaganda that I've been saying over the last year and a half, I stand by every single thing that I've said about this. What is this materialist analysis? I thought journalists were supposed to quote Star Wars and do the soy face. Well, that's what we have, and we have a lot of those journalists, and we have a lot of pro-NATO leftists as well. Unfortunately, over the last year and a half, that have kind of come out of the woodwork, which again I don't agree with. There's kind of one thing I wanted to look at. I think there's another. I just wanted to look at this. Like this is from the Ottawa Citizen. This is David Pugliese, one of the only one of the only actual journalists in this country. In the Ottawa Citizen in 2015. Ukrainian unit accused of neo-Nazi links wants Canada's help. This is 2015. Again, I know there's some Johnny-come-latelys here on Twitch that started talking about Ukraine in February of 2022. Well, I've been talking about this for a while. Maybe not in 2015, but you can go back and listen to podcast episodes that I've done talking about this from, 2018, 2019. This is when I started talking about this subject. So there's been reporting on this in Western media for a long time now. This is 2015. Here's Pugliese again in 2021, years later. Fuck off, Ottawa Citizen. Far-right extremists in Ukraine brag that they've received training from the Canadian forces. The study from an institute at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. tracked social media accounts of the far-right group Centuria, documenting its Ukrainian military members giving Nazi salutes, promoting white nationalism, and praising members of Nazi SS units. So again, this is not Putin propaganda. This is like documented. Canada and the United States and the CIA and NATO have been arming and training and funding these Ukrainian right-wing, not even right-wing, openly neo-Nazi militias for years now, for going on a decade now. And if you can just accept the fact that we've been doing that, and that there's no excuse, you're not defensively arming neo-Nazi militias. If you can acknowledge that we've played that role, you can also acknowledge that Russia, sees that as a threat to their security. And if you can accept the reality, the objectively true, inarguable reality that we have been arming and training and funding these groups, then you must acknowledge that this is not a conflict that is just Russia invaded. Russia invaded in 2022, and that's when it began. This has been brewing for a while. This has been brewing for over a decade. Canada and the US and other Western countries have been gleefully fanning the flames of this, and pushed Russia to the point where they did finally do the unthinkable and actually did invade the country. That's just the reality. Can we discuss Russia's use of neo-Nazis? I mean, I touched on that earlier, Sloppy Dong. I did touch on that earlier. When you talk about neo-Nazis in Russia, well, why are there neo-Nazis in Russia? Part of it is because of the collapse of the Soviet Union, and fascists have flourished in all Eastern European countries, in the former Soviet countries, after the destruction of the Soviet Union. They're also not, to the same extent, implicated in the military establishment in the same way that it is in Ukraine. And also, we're not arming and funding and training Russian neo-Nazis. We're arming and funding and training Ukrainian neo-Nazis. That, to me, is the big essential difference. One thing that really helped me contextualize the conflict between Ukraine, NATO, and Russia was a recent Chapo interview with Norman Finkelstein. I didn't hear that. I haven't listened to Chapo in a long time, but credit to them, though, for not going full pro-NATO support as many on the left have in the West over the last year. Credit to them. We haven't put the lead star from one of the biggest media properties in a Zoom interview with the Wagner Group for PR yet. I mean, that's the big difference, right? That's the big difference. Thank you, Sloppy Dong. Sloppy Dong, Losidic. Thank you. I appreciate your effort to engage on this. You know, I don't like to debate. I don't like to like yell at people or debate bullshit. I do like having like nuanced conversations about this if people are interested in that. I hope I've kind of articulated my viewpoint so people can get it. And I got to go now. I got to go. All right? That's all. That's all for today. That was like 3 straight hours of a lot of talking. My throat is sore. And I would like to leave now. Can we stop calling pro-NATO people leftists? Foreign and economic issues are the main points of leftism. If you fail one of them, you're out. Well, I agree with that. I think when I say that, it's kind of as a pejorative way to sarcastically describe them as being leftists. Because I don't know any other way to, because these people are self-described leftists that support NATO, that support Western imperialism. Which I think is, I agree with you that it's ridiculous, but it's kind of I'm kind of saying it sarcastically. Thank you for watching this stream, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate it. It's another like 5 minutes. If anyone watching right now appreciated this conversation, or this discourse, or this analysis, please, if you can, subscribe to TRRS and support the content that I do here. Every little bit helps. I appreciate it a lot. The only way that this content and this community exists is through the extremely generosity of the community members. So if you can, please subscribe to TRRS. It is Twitch's only 2-dimensional.
You've just become an elite member
shaped
of the Friendship Triangle.
Friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. Gen X Bushy, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Oh my goodness. Gen X Bushy, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Gen X Bushy. Now we're very close. We're very close to the sub goal. Achingly close. Tantalizingly close to the sub goal. Oh god.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
BBDH187, thanks for the 15 months to tier 1. Thank you, BBDH. I really appreciate that. Thank you. We got only 2 more. We're 2 away. 2 gifted subs away from getting to the sub goal. I'm just choosing finding who to raid here. It looks like it's going to be David Tovarish again.
Infrastructure projects, income support.
He's watching some Ben Norton stuff.
Transportation, climate change adaptation, sanitation services, and renewable energies. You gotta give me something. You gotta give me some content.
Oh, vote for Hefe, continuing the gift sub they got from Maverick. Thank you, vote for Hefe. I don't think that
You've
counts.
just become an elite member
goodness.
of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh my goodness. Our new friend, Sloppy Dong Milosadic. Wow. Thank you so much, Sloppy Dong. Seriously, for the discussion and for the 5 gifted subs. Incredibly generous of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for that. Oh. Yeah, so we're going to raid. It's a great username. It's just fantastic. I agree.
It also helps build economies. The Aston High
So thanks everyone. I'm gonna hit the raid button because I gotta go blow my nose. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. Great discussion today. I'll be back tomorrow. Just as I'm here every single day. Not on weekends, but every single day I'm here doing this stream. So I'll be back tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Pyongyang time. See you there. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.